A woman in a blue vest and bandana leans on her mop, thinking she only came here for a simple part-time job. Her thoughts are interrupted by the sight of intimidating tattoos, a fierce bulldog on one man's arm and betrayal is death on another's chest. Cowering, she realizes the two hulking men are gangsters, with one holding a bulldog-shaped cup. One of the men roars in frustration, making the woman flinch in terror. She despairs, lamenting that this is exactly why she shouldn't have become a gambler. The man in the white shirt orders his subordinates to find the kids before their brother finds out, warning that they'll all be dead if they fail. As the group of men rushes out, the terrified woman lets out a piercing kya ah. Two men walk past her, one holding a watering can, wondering if anyone was left behind. Splash! The man with the watering can suddenly douses the man in the white shirt. Horrified by the scene, the woman worries about the man who was splashed, wondering what she should do. The man with the goatee apologizes to his brother, saying he has committed a mortal sin, while the drenched man promises to get him a shirt. As a towel is offered to the now shirtless man, the woman gets a nosebleed from the stunning view of his physique. As he turns, an elaborate and massive dragon tattoo covering his entire back is revealed. A caption notes his grim look and the scars that mark his muscular torso. The woman realizes with dawning horror that this is the infamous gang violence boss she's only ever heard about. Panicked, she decides to finish her job quickly and request a transfer from her dispatch company. She struck the gang boss directly in the ribs, causing him to double over in pain. Confused, she wonders why the gang boss is suddenly standing behind her, his hand trembling on her mop handle. Her eyes widen in pure shock as she realizes what she has just done. Seeing the boss clutching his side in pain, she thinks she's dead, even as he tries to reassure his subordinate that he's okay. His men crowd around him, anxiously asking what happened and if someone hurt his ribs. One enraged subordinate brandishes a trowel, vowing to find the person responsible and bury them in the mountains. Another subordinate pulls a knife, ready to kill the culprit, as the terrified woman whispers that she's scared. The gang boss gives a chilling glare, sending a wave of fear through the already petrified woman. He tries to tell his men to wait, but it's too late. Screaming, she bolts from the scene. As she flees screaming apologies, the narration identifies her, Go Yoon-ha, a 27-year-old part-timer. The scene transitions to a modern, glass-fronted building in the city. Later, a black-haired woman blow-dries Yoon-ha's hair, surprised to hear she met a gangster. The hairdresser, introduced as Yoon-ha's best friend Gumi-ho, asks how she knew he was a gangster. Yoon-ha insists it's a feeling you get the moment you see him, something Gumi-ho would understand. Gumi-ho curiously asks what the man looks like, while Yoon-ha thinks about how to describe him. Yoon-ha describes a brutal-looking man. Tall, with shoulders like a football player, scarred eyes, and knife marks on his face. Gumi-ho is immediately intrigued, declaring a tall, well-built bad guy is her type, much to Yoon-ha's annoyance. Yoon-ha protests that he's a criminal, but Gumi-ho dismisses her, saying a true gangster wouldn't be so easily shamed. Gumi-ho points out Yoon-ha's long-standing fear of gangsters, but Yoon-ha explains it's because she almost died meeting one as a child. Gumi-ho teasingly asks what would happen if the boss fell in love with Yoon-ha at first sight. The punchline lands as Gumi-ho reveals you're the first person to break his ribs, leaving Yoon-ha utterly stunned. Gumi-ho laughs and urges the single Yoon-ha to meet a guy, saying there's no one like a gangster boss. A smiling Yoon-ha promises they can meet again soon. Gumi-ho hugs her friend goodbye, wishing her well for her filming session. Ya waves a cheerful goodbye, her mood much improved. Now on set, Yoon-ha cheerfully tells her crew that they'll be playing with clay. She explains that her day job is as a kids channel creator, where she molds clay. Her YoungTube channel, Minnie and Friends, has 10,000 subscribers, making her wonder why she still needs a part-time cleaning job. With a flourish, she reveals her impressive clay creation, a statue of Admiral Yi Sun-sin. Getting into character, she vows to protect Joseon before a cameraman reminds her to wrap it up, snapping her out of her daze. She gives a final, cheerful farewell to her viewers, ending the recording with 2 thumbs up. With the filming done, she breathes a sigh of relief, happy to have finished her day's work safely. However, she can't stop worrying about the gang boss, recalling how sick he looked and wondering if she should have offered to pay for his treatment. Terrified, Yoon-ha imagines being buried in the mountains, just for offering to pay his medical bills. The scene shifts to the OOO University Hospital, where a panicked voice screams for their brother. In a hospital room, Ji-hwan's subordinates wail over his injury, immediately blaming the rival Miao Gang, until he weakly tells them all to shut up. A caption introduces Ji-hwan's furious right-hand man, Ju Il-yong, who clenches his fist and asks if any rivals are still around. Burning with anger, Il-yong makes a grim declaration. It's war. He then rushes to his boss's bedside, explaining that their dramatic entrance was just because they were so worried about him. The boss, Seo Ji-hwan of the Thirsty Deer Gang, sits wearily in his hospital bed with a bandage on his forehead. With an exhausted sigh, his thoughts turn back to the memory of that woman. A subordinate asks if he means the mouse-sized woman, leaving the rest of the gang looking utterly confused. Their minds run wild as they imagine the timid cleaner as a blood-soaked assassin, shocked that she could be so dangerous. As his men debate how to find the mysterious woman without a name, Il-yong suggests launching a formal criminal investigation. Suddenly, a loud "Stop!" from the doorway cuts through their discussion, catching them all by surprise. Ji-hwan's face twitches with a dark, annoyed aura at the constant interruptions. Gulp! His men freeze, nervously watching their boss's reaction. Ji-hwan gives a quiet but firm order. Find the woman, bring her to him politely, and don't touch a single hair on her. He repeats his stern command to bring her to him, unharmed. His subordinates are stunned, realizing that their fearless brother, even after being attacked, is demanding they treat his assailant with care. The scene transitions to an outside view of the large, modern university hospital. Ji-hwan stands alone by his hospital room window, gazing outside in quiet contemplation. A close-up reveals his intense and serious expression as he remains lost in thought. In the hallway, a group of nurses hiccup and whisper in fear, completely intimidated. As Ji-hwan walks down the hall, terrified onlookers speculate about a murder case, while he simply thinks that the sun is hot. His mind drifts to playing hide-and-seek, fondly remembering the childhood game. Flashbacks show a 7-year-old Ji-hwan being told to study, and a 15-year-old being pushed to fight his enemies, showing his conflicting upbringing. Snapped out of his reverie by a sound, Ji-hwan turns his head with a curious, hic. After making eye contact, the people in the hallway scatter in fear, leaving him standing alone. Il-yong appears with a cheerful smile, and Ji-hwan greets his right-hand man by name. Il-yong worries about his brother being discharged too soon, insisting he stay longer in case of after effects. Ignoring the concern, Ji-hwan cuts to the chase, asking if Il-yong has found that woman. Il-yong reports that due to privacy laws, the dispatch company refuses to give him any information. He explains their only option is to file a police report, to which Ji-hwan quietly agrees. Elsewhere, Yoon-ha is back at a cleaning job, straining as she pushes her mop. Misunderstanding his quietness for defeat, his men start training, ready to find and destroy the organization they assume is behind her. Biff, a small child running down the hall, crashes directly into Ji-hwan's injured side. While Il-yong scolds the children for running, Ji-hwan, clutching his ribs in pain, tells him to leave them alone. Kneeling down, he gently asks the boy where he's going in such a hurry, and the child answers, to see Sister Minnie. The boy's mother arrives, her eyes wide as she sees the intimidating man kneeling before her son. The terrified mother yanks her child away, asking what he's doing, and scolding her son for talking to strangers. Il-yong steps forward to defend his boss, but Ji-hwan grabs his arm and stops him. Ji-hwan tells him to let it go, and a frustrated Il-yong backs down with an apology. Without another word, Ji-hwan turns and walks down the hall toward a moving walkway. He approaches a group of children, thinking to himself with a smirk, dusty germs, do you think I'll lose to you? It's Yoon-ha, dressed as Sister Minnie, with a big red bow, leading a health-themed activity for the children's ward. The kids cheer for the healthy boy as she narrates his victory over the dust germs in the name of justice. Sister Minnie beams with happiness as the children cheer that she's the best. Ji-hwan freezes in utter shock, his mind screaming, "I found you!" He steps toward her and calls out, "Excuse me," trying to get her attention. Wah! Before he can reach her, a nurse pushes Ji-hwan, now suddenly in a wheelchair, away from In-ha and the crowd of children. A flashback shows the moment Yoon-ha accidentally jabbed him with the mop. The two finally stand face to face, wondering what will happen next as children greet them both by name, revealing a surprising connection. Ji-hwan watches silently from the doorway as Yoon-ha greets a boy in a wheelchair, who confirms he's there to see her. She hugs the boy, Seo-hyun, telling him she missed him and brought him a toy. Seo-hyun thanks her happily, but Yoon-ha worries internally that he's gotten thinner. Outside, a woman asks Yoon-ha about Seo-hyun's condition, while Ji-hwan is seen in the background with the boy's wheelchair. A voice explains that the only cure for his childhood cancer is ion therapy, which isn't available in Korea. The woman tells a worried Yoon-ha that they must go to Japan or Germany for treatment. Heartbreak fills Yoon-ha's eyes as she processes the staggering cost, 100 million. She stands frozen in the hospital hallway, completely flustered by the news. Wailing with comical despair, she cries out that she barely earns a salary. Stumbling backward in a fit of anguish, she bumps right into Ji-hwan. Her hand lands on his firm chest, and she thinks in shock about the impressive pectorals she's just touched. A close-up shows Yoon-ha's face, a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. Ji-hwan looks down at her with a calm, unreadable expression. The two are frozen in an awkward standoff, Yoon-ha gazing up at him in shock. She keeps staring up at him, her hand still resting on his chest. Her heart thumps wildly as her hand remains pressed against his hospital gown. Ji-hwan quietly asks her to excuse him, and she stammers a timid reply, their hearts pounding in unison. He asks for his personal space back, and she yanks her hand away with a yelp and a panicked apology. Ji-hwan addresses her as Miss Gyun, leaving her completely stunned as she asks how he knows her name. She spirals into panic, realizing he was searching for her and wondering if it's some kind of underworld tactic. With tears streaming down her face, she decides there's only one thing she can possibly do. Thinking she shouldn't have run away after hurting him, she prepares to face the consequences, much to Ji-hwan's confusion. She drops to her knees and bows deeply, wailing a dramatic apology for her actions. Covering her face in fear, she begs him to stop, explaining how scared she was, while he tries to tell her she's mistaken. He reaches out a hand to help her up, but she flinches away in terror. Cowering on the floor, she begs him not to use violence as he stands silently. As he clenches his fist in frustration, she threatens to report him if he hits her. Pow! A small boy rushes in and punches Ji-hwan's leg, telling the scoundrel not to bother Sister Minnie. A tiny army of children swarms Ji-hwan, hitting his legs and telling Sister Minnie to run. As a boy yells that they'll handle the villain, a terrified Yoon-ha worries that Ji-hwan might actually hit the kids. One of the children bravely raises his fist, rallying the others to join him. Yoon-ha quickly gathers the children in her arms, yelling for them to run away together. Snatching up the kids, she flees down the hall as Ji-hwan helplessly calls for her to wait. Watching her escape, Ji-hwan is left thinking about the 100 million she needs. Back in his room, Ji-hwan sits pondering how on earth he can get 100 million. His men note that their boss is fabulously wealthy, and Il-young wonders aloud what he could possibly be worrying about. Il-young whispers to another subordinate about the boss's recovery, and his companion darkly suggests they should just bury the doctor. Ji-hwan recalls Eun-ha's terrified, "no violence," and wonders if that's really how she sees him. He reflects on how tiny she is, yet so quick to strike without thinking. He concludes that a person as pure as Yoon-ha would never accept his money and would turn a found fortune over to the police. Sighing in frustration, he wonders how he could possibly give her the money. Il-young enters to announce a visitor from the Criminal Investigation Office, but Ji-hwan angrily tells him he ordered him to stop. A nervous subordinate reads a background report on Yoon-ha, detailing her prestigious education and her family's 10 billion won in assets. The report continues, revealing her powerful family of doctors, lawyers, and prosecutors, shocking Ji-hwan and his crew. The subordinate explains that she receives no financial support after a falling out with her parents over her career choice. Ji-hwan realizes that this must be the reason she's struggling financially. The report confirms she has an urgent need for funds and has looked into private loans. The subordinate clarifies she didn't actually borrow any money, and the reason for her need remains unknown. Ji-hwan clenches his fist, confirming his suspicions were right all along. The report concludes with a crucial detail. Go Yoon-ha is scheduled to attend a charity auction for children with cancer this afternoon. Pat. Determined, Ji-hwan quickly fastens his hospital gown, ready for action. His subordinates gasp in disbelief, one stammering, "Brother?" Revealing his muscular physique, Ji-hwan confidently orders Il-young to go right away and bring 100 million in cash. Elsewhere, a woman despairs over her finances, lamenting that no one would lend her 100 million on her meager salary. She resigns herself to the fact that Seo-hyun can't afford treatment, and her only option is a private loan with a staggering 12% monthly interest rate. Calculating the loan terms, she's horrified to discover that borrowing 100 million won would balloon into a debt of nearly 390 million in just 1 year. Her hopes turn to Yena, a rich and popular kids creator, believing she must convince her to help raise money for the treatment. Despite the director failing to persuade Yena, the woman steels her resolve, determined not to give up. Approaching Yena at the charity event, she's met with a cold refusal as Yena questions why she should help her sister's fans. As a stunned Yena looks on, Yena continues, dismissively contrasting her own expensive sponsored toys with simple items like clay dolls. Eunha earnestly asks what she's supposed to do for her friends who can't afford expensive toys. Yena smirks and condescendingly offers Eunha a cleaning job for a daily wage, which gives Eunha a sudden idea. Beaming with delight, Eunha gratefully accepts the offer for Seo-hyun's sake, clasping Yena's hand while Yena looks on with disdain. At the charity auction, the bidding for Yena's toy is intense, as the crowd enthusiastically shouts offers. After the toy is sold, Eunha remarks on the crowd's amazing enthusiasm, but Yena just looks bored next to her handmade clay creations. With Yena's toys sold out, the auction turns to Minnie's items, and a hopeful Eunha thinks that her own subscribers must be in the audience. Yena holds up Eunha's clay doll and mockingly asks why she's selling something so humble. With a condescending look, Yena wonders aloud if she should start the bidding for the doll at a mere 101. On stage, Yena presents the clay figure as Admiral Yi Sun-sin, made by Minnie, highlighting its features as Eunha watches with nervous hope. Yena announces a starting price of 10,000 won, leaving Eunha stunned as she calls for the first bid. The room falls silent, and an awkward Yena asks why no one is bidding. The audience murmurs in disinterest, questioning the quality of the clay doll and declaring they have no intention of buying it. Heartbroken, Eunha's face falls as she overhears someone in the crowd wondering why she would even try to sell such an item. Suddenly, a man's voice cuts through the silence, declaring, "I'll buy it," causing the entire room to turn in shock. It's Il-yong who stands, his expression serious as he makes the unexpected bid. Just behind him, Ji-hwan rises, his commanding presence in a sharp black suit immediately drawing all eyes. With unwavering confidence, Ji-hwan announces his offer. "I will buy it for 100 million. The entire auction hall is struck silent by the astronomical and unbelievable bid. He stands firm and resolute, a calm pillar amidst the stunned silence of the crowd. Eunha's eyes widen in absolute horror as she recognizes the bidder as the gang boss from back then. The crowd instinctively parts as Ji-hwan and Il-yong walk to the front, their intimidating aura hushing a curious child's question. They arrive at the stage, stopping before a shocked Eunha and Yena in a tense standoff. Il-yong smirks, confirming with the nervous auctioneer that the item is indeed the statue of Admiral Yi Sun-sin. Il-yong impatiently tells his boss they should just buy it, and Ji-hwan gives a quiet but firm, "Oh yes," in agreement. As Ji-hwan watches the stage, the flustered auctioneer nervously restates the original starting price. Looking directly at Ji-hwan, Eunha firmly says no. Now standing face to face, he ignores her refusal and calmly reiterates his offer to buy the doll for 100 million won. A subordinate delivers a box of cash, and after telling Il-yong they can go, Ji-hwan turns to leave a stunned Eunha behind. Eunha stops him, demanding to know why on earth he spent 100 million won on her simple clay doll. He offers a slight smile, asking if he's not allowed to participate in charity auctions, but she insists it's too much money. He tells her not to worry, though she remains baffled, unable to comprehend his bizarre purchase. Ji-hwan falls silent, simply gazing at her with a serious, unreadable expression. She stares back, her mind racing as she tries to make sense of the unbelievable situation. His intense expression softens into a gentle, reassuring smile. Completely flustered, Eunha blushes and finds herself unable to look away. Later, over drinks, a friend asks Eunha if she really received 100 million from that gangster. Eunha confirms he gave it to her in cash on the spot, and her friend immediately asks if she gave the money to Seo-hyun. In a flashback, Eunha hands the box of money to Seo-hyun's tearfully grateful mother, saying she was happy to help. Smiling, she explains that Seo-hyun has already left for Japan and should be able to receive his treatment safely. Her friend cheers, happily declaring that the money earned by sacrificing herself to the gang boss was bound to work out well. Over wine, a suddenly anxious Eunha wonders what on earth that person could possibly want from her. She recalls Ji-hwan's strange parting words, picturing his slight, unreadable smile. Yeonha tells her friend she's baffled by his "play with me" comment, jokingly wondering if he wants to create monsters. Her friend wildly speculates about sinister games involving drugs or rearranging organs before scolding herself for joking when she's already so anxious. The friend tries to reassure Yeonha by suggesting he's just a fan, but a worried Yeonha asks her to call the police if anything happens. Thunk. Ji-hwan exits a car, dressed impeccably in a black suit, as Il-young holds the door. He and Il-young walk purposefully toward a large, modern building. Inside, a line of men in suits bows deeply, welcoming their Hyung home. Ji-hwan hands the boxed clay figure to Il-young, instructing him to place it on the living room shelf. As Il-young holds the box, Ji-hwan warns him to be careful, as it's worth 100 million, leaving Il-young wondering what kind of art it could be. Il-young opens the box and stares in electrified shock at the simple clay figure inside. The subordinates gaze in horrified silence at the Admiral Yi Sun-sin statue, now displayed like a priceless treasure. Huddled together, his men conclude that their boss has lost his mind and consider having him committed. As a subordinate calls out, "Il-young, Hyung," the blonde-haired man turns to address the concerned group. Il-young scolds his men, asking if they've truly forgotten the kind of man their boss is. In a flashback, a battle-hardened Ji-hwan stands over his defeated rivals after taking control for the Bulldog faction. Ji-hwan solemnly announces the immediate disbandment of the Bulldog faction. He offers his men a new, legitimate life, promising they won't starve, and immediately establishing the Thirsty Deer Meat Processing Company. Back in the present, his men tearfully declare that their Hyung is a savior who gave them a chance to live like human beings. Il-young dismisses their sentiment, questioning why their boss would buy such a doll, but then recalls it was made by the killer janitor. Il-young berates his confused colleagues, telling the ignorant jerks to think for a moment. Dressed as Uncle Sam in a sudden fantasy sequence, Il-young declares that Ji-hwan is trying to scout Yeonha. He explains it's better to recruit such a brilliant woman than to bury her, and his men praise his insight. A subordinate named Mingyu interrupts, telling the others that their boss has been acting strange. Mingyu, the youngest of the 12, explains that Ji-hwan was just staring at all the clothes in his closet. He continues, describing how Ji-hwan kept trying on different outfits in front of the mirror, much to his confusion. Caught red-handed, a blushing Ji-hwan dismisses their concerns as nothing, flustered by their attention. In a flashback, a young Yeonha begs a boy named Hyun-woo to play a little longer before their teacher arrives. She excitedly negotiates for 10 more minutes, and he agrees with a smile. Playing in a sandbox, she asks her friend Hyun-woo to build a window for their sandcastle. When he asks what it is, she explains it's a room for a beautiful princess. Hyun-woo smiles and sweetly asks if she means a princess as beautiful as Yeonha. A blushing Yeonha thinks that if there's a prince, it would be someone like Hyun-woo, who she wants to marry when she grows up. Crack, a black dress shoe suddenly stomps down, crushing their sandcastle. A sinister-looking Ji-hwan looms over the terrified children, declaring, "I got you," as Yeonha screams in horror. Wham! Yeonha jolts awake in bed, gasping as she clutches her blankets, terrified from the nightmare. She wonders why Hyun-woo and the gangster boss both appeared in her dream, realizing her search for his company, Thirsty Deer, must have triggered it. She recalls learning that Thirsty Deer is a large social enterprise but still can't shake the feeling that it's a front for gangsters. Deciding she has to go, she stands before her closet and wonders what she should wear for the meeting. As she gets ready, she anxiously recalls her friend mentioning that Ji-hwan said she was the first person to ever break his ribs. After settling on a simple green hoodie, she sighs and admits her outfit is pretty lame for the occasion. Her friend's voice chides her for not trying to look good for the gangster boss as she nervously waits outside a building. Ji-hwan arrives, looking impossibly handsome and dapper in a perfectly tailored gray suit. Noticing how hot it is, Yeonha nervously introduces herself, and he formally introduces himself as Seo Ji-hwan. She finds herself momentarily speechless, captivated by his dashing appearance. Blushing, he reassures her that his injury wasn't serious and asks why she's avoiding eye contact. He sincerely thanks her explaining that Seo-hyun received his treatment because of her help. He asks her to lunch, and though she's so nervous she feels faint, she simply says she eats everything. As they walk together, Yoon-ha notices that everyone on the street is staring at them. Spotting a frog headband at a street stall, she gets an idea, exclaiming that it's perfect for a frog egg video. In a flashback, Ji-hwan recalls being too nervous to properly see a family enjoying themselves at an outdoor cafe. As he walks with Yoon-ha, she thinks that it's a shame. Thump. Distracted, she accidentally bumps into his back with a yelp. Looking ahead, Yoon-ha spots a blonde-haired woman entering a Meow Money loan office and asks Ji-hwan if he's interested in her. Damn, Ji-hwan mutters with a stern look, as Yoon-ha worriedly asks what he didn't like. She watches him stride toward the same building the woman entered. Realizing he's following her, Yoon-ha's mind races with fear, recalling a news story about a gangster selling a woman to a bar as she imagines the blonde woman being threatened inside. Now, inside the loan office herself, a nervous Yoon-ha wonders what kind of place it is. Ji-hwan reviews a document, noting their shady business practices, while the blonde woman demands her loan agreement back from the lender. Rib Ji-hwan suddenly tears the contract to pieces, shocking both Yoon-ha and the blonde woman, who angrily asks who he thinks he's talking to. The blonde woman is asked for her story, and after a moment of confusion, she explains she just wanted money for a trip with friends. Ji-hwan sternly tells the blonde woman she's lucky and warns her never to use loan sharks again, but she defiantly asks why he's meddling. Look at this, Ji-hwan exclaims, his expression intense as he prepares to explain the danger. Yoon-ha lays out the predatory terms, explaining a 3 million won loan has a 12% weekly interest rate that compounds horrifically. When the stunned blonde woman asks how much that is, Ji-hwan presses her, asking why she's suddenly speechless. Ji-hwan coldly states the debt would become over 4.7 million won in just 1 month. Yoon-ha continues the terrifying math, revealing the debt would balloon to over 7.4 million in 2 months and nearly 11.7 million in 6. Looking at the numbers, Yoon-ha realizes with a shock that the debt is almost 12 million won. The blonde woman gasps at the amount, while Ji-hwan calculates that the debt would exceed 57 million won in 6 months, questioning what it would be in a year. Yoon-ha admits to the blonde woman how scary it is, advising her to always calculate compound interest and be careful next time. Feeling confident after her impromptu financial lesson, Yoon-ha suggests they go eat, which earns a slight, amused smirk from Ji-hwan. Their departure is blocked by a group of gangsters, whose leader asks Ji-hwan what brings him to their business, terrifying Yoon-ha. The gangster leader casually greets Ji-hwan, saying he was just passing by for coffee, as Yoon-ha instinctively ducks behind Ji-hwan for cover. Peeking from behind his suit jacket, a frightened Yoon-ha watches the confrontation unfold. Ji-hwan coolly adjusts his tie and asks the gangster why he's meddling instead of just getting his coffee. Standing protectively in front of Yoon-ha, Ji-hwan again faces the gangster leader, who asks what brings him to their business. The gangster leader tells Ji-hwan to mind his own business, but Ji-hwan's sharp glare tells him he's not backing down. Ji-hwan's intense aura intimidates the gangsters, as their leader tells them Ji-hwan is ordering him to conduct his business properly. 2 of the thugs whisper nervously about not having enough pages or extensions, while Ji-hwan looks on with disdain. As the gangster leader seethes, Ji-hwan warns him that his patience is limited and tells him to give a message to Go Yang-hee to do his job properly. Enraged by Ji-hwan's audacity, the gangster leader shouts, "What's wrong with this guy?" Bang! The gangster throws a punch, but Ji-hwan effortlessly dodges, sending his attacker flying past him. Thump! Ji-hwan dispatches the thug with a powerful kick, then coolly surveys the room and asks, "Who else?" Calling the remaining gangsters cowards, he turns to a wide-eyed Yoon-ha and tells her it's time to leave. As the other thugs rush to their fallen leader, Ji-hwan quickly ushers the 2 women out of the office. Now safely outside, the 3 of them walk down the city street. The blonde woman notices Yoon-ha looks unwell and calls out her name in concern as Yoon-ha stumbles weakly. Ji-hwan acts fast, catching the fainting Yoon-ha and pulling her into his arms. Held against his chest, a dizzy Yoon-ha is struck by his fresh mint scent. As she rests her hands on his suit, she feels an overwhelming sense of security. Thump thump. Her heart pounds as Ji-hwan leans in to ask if she's okay, leaving her flustered and speechless. Yoon-ha says she just felt a little dizzy, as the blonde woman thanks Ji-hwan profusely and asks for his contact info to treat him to a meal. Ji-hwan asks the blonde woman why she thinks he's different from the other gangsters, and she replies it's because he saved her and is a good fighter. He delivers a harsh dose of reality, telling her that cool movie gangsters don't exist and that she needs to wake up. The blonde woman calls out to Miss Yunha, who thoughtfully considers Ji-hwan's well-spoken, truthful statement. Ji-hwan decides he needs to go to his company, worried the gangsters might show up at his office. He apologizes for not being able to join them for a meal, but the blonde woman reassures him it's fine, admitting she didn't want to go anyway. As he turns to leave, Ji-hwan promises the blonde woman that he will definitely contact her again. Alone for a moment, Yun-ha sighs, looking flushed and overwhelmed by the intense encounter. The scene shifts to Yena in the present, holding a glass of wine and thinking that the current situation feels just like back then. At a gathering, a colleague suggests a nature preserve, but a dismissive Yena insists on Disneyland, causing another woman to silently fume about her selfishness. The woman seethes, realizing Yena is now pursuing the very man she's been interested in, as a wine glass shatters, symbolizing her rage. Fuming, the woman stands with clenched fists over the shards of the broken glass, her anger palpable. As the furious woman storms off in one scene, a separate view shows Eun-ha standing alone, arms crossed and deep in thought. Fresh from a shower in her company apartment, Yun-ha remains baffled by the day's events, admitting the more she thinks, the less she understands. Her heart thumps as she recalls reuniting with her childhood friend Hyun-woo, remembering her uneasy thought that his companions seemed like gangsters. Scrolling through her comments, Yun-ha hopes her YouTube channel might help her reconnect with Hyun-woo, wondering if a kind user named Justice could be him. A new comment from Justice corrects her video with surprisingly detailed legal knowledge about arrest warrants, leaving Yun-ha completely puzzled. A portrait of a handsome, black-haired young man is revealed as the face of the mysterious commenter, Justice, as the scene concludes. A promotional panel displays advertisements for other series. Staring at the detailed legal analysis from Justice on her phone, Yun-ha can only think, The puzzle pieces click into place as Yun-ha realizes the commenter's legal expertise matches her childhood memory of Hyun-woo's dream to become a prosecutor. Walking through the city, Yun-ha's thoughts drift, wondering if the gangsters she once saw were actually after Seo Ji-hwan. A brief flash of worry crosses her mind as she pictures Ji-hwan, wondering if he would be all right in a fight. Her eyes widen in comical shock as she suddenly catches herself. Flustered, she mentally scolds herself, trying to shake off the image of his face and insisting she doesn't care if he gets into fights. Yun-ha runs into Yena by an elevator, who glares at her with crossed arms, creating a tense atmosphere. After Yun-ha's greeting is met with a cold stare, she wonders why Yena always ignores her. Yena aggressively slams her hand against the wall, cornering a startled Eun-ha. Yena angrily demands to know how Eun-ha met Seo Ji-hwan, prompting a confused Eun-ha to ask if she knows him. Yena presses her on why Ji-hwan gave her 100 million won, but Eun-ha clarifies it was a donation that paid for Seo-hyun's treatment. "Are you kidding me?" Yena shouts, revealing she knows Ji-hwan bought the doll on the condition that he gets to meet Yun-ha 3 times. Shocked that Yena knows about their arrangement, Yun-ha asks how she knows and why she's acting this way. Yun-ha downplays their connection, explaining they only met once and didn't even finish dinner before she had to leave for work. Yena demands confirmation that she and Ji-hwan have no relationship, and Yun-ha quickly assures her that they don't. Yun-ha gasps in shock at what Yena says next. Yena declares that since they aren't in a relationship, she's free to win him over for herself. A completely stunned Yun-ha can only ask, "What?" With a confident smirk, Yena announces that she will be the one to contact him now. Yena turns and walks away, leaving Yun-ha to process the bizarre and aggressive confrontation. Walking away, Yun-ha tries to convince herself she doesn't care, reaffirming her initial desire to avoid Ji-hwan. Frustrated, she resolves to get their 3 promised meetings over with as quickly as possible so she never has to see him again. In Ji-hwan's office, Il-yong reports that after a week of surveillance, the rival Aongi group shows no sign of seeking revenge. Pleased, Ji-hwan praises Il-yong's work and decides it's safe to send his men back to their jobs at the factory. Looking at her resume, Ji-hwan recounts a recent betrayal by an employee who took a salary advance for his daughter's surgery and gambled it away. Il-yong angrily agrees with his boss's initial assessment, wishing they had eliminated unredeemable people from the start. Ji-hwan accepts the blame, acknowledging it was his own generosity in trusting the man's pleas that led to the betrayal. Il-yong asks what they will do when they catch the betrayer, and Ji-hwan ominously asks back, "What should we do?" With an icy glare, Ji-hwan makes a chilling throat-slitting gesture with his hand. Il-young stands at attention, simply replying, "Understood, brother." Arriving at a quiet office, Yunha assumes the subordinates are at the factory and nervously wonders if the rival Aongi group could be there instead. Il-young finds Ji-hwan practicing a confident facial expression, discovering his boss is nervously preparing in case Yunha is scared of him. Following Ji-hwan's instruction to proceed, Yunha walks down a dark, foreboding hallway, her face etched with fear. Overhearing a threat about cutting wrists, Yunha is horrified, concluding that her fears were right and there are no good gangsters. She arrives to find a smiling Ji-hwan, nervously explaining she came to check on him since she hadn't heard anything. Ji-hwan's warm smile and thanks for her concern catch her off guard, and she finds herself blushing despite her fear. A scarred man with a bat appears, smirking as he tells Ji-hwan he should have stayed out of their business. "What if I don't want to?" Ji-hwan replies coolly, loosening his tie as he prepares for the inevitable fight. Il-young shields Yunha, cursing that they are outnumbered and wishing they had backup. Desperate, Il-young turns to the terrified Yunha and tells her to do something, causing her to cry out, "Me!" Il-young suggests that since his brother can handle 10 men, Yunha should show her own latent skills, but she denies having any. As Ji-hwan watches calmly, a cartoonishly drawn Yunha tries to flee the scene. Il-young answers an incoming call from Ming-yu, asking him what's going on while Yunha watches. An off-screen voice reports that the Aongi group of about 10 men will arrive in half an hour, as Ji-hwan and a shocked Eunha stand together. Ji-hwan tells Eunha to leave for now, ordering Il-young to take her away as she looks on in shock. As Il-young leads her away, Eunha wonders if she's being taken to a secret hideout like in the movies. A scarred man with an eye patch appears, announcing to Ji-hwan that they have arrived. The scarred man, leading a group of toughs and armed with a baseball bat, enters the room menacingly. The Aonji leader demands to know who the woman is, while Ji-hwan smirks and a terrified Eunha panics about what to do. With a look of strained panic, Yunha suddenly throws her hands up in a welcoming gesture. Forcing a cheerful smile, she introduces herself as Sister Minnie to the bewildered gangsters. A promotional banner appears as Yunha internally panics, wondering what on earth she's doing. Ji-hwan tries to reassure a nervous Yunha by dismissing the gangsters as just big kids playing with toys. Ji-hwan urges Yunha to hide while shouting, "Guys!" to get his men's attention. In character as Sister Minnie, Yunha lectures the gangsters, warning them they could get hurt playing with dangerous objects. She winks and cheerfully continues her lesson, telling them they shouldn't hit each other even when they fight. The gangsters are completely baffled by her behavior, with their leader wondering what's wrong with the crazy woman. "Oh," Yunha points an accusatory finger at the gangster leader, looking scandalized. She sternly scolds the men for using bad words, demanding to know if their behavior is acceptable. Turning to Ji-hwan's men, she wags her finger and warns her good friends not to make her tell them twice. With a confident look, Yunha announces that it's time for her final move. She strikes a pose and invites everyone to follow Sister Minnie's lead. The Aonji gangsters stand frozen in confusion, still holding their weapons. Yunha watches in shock as the gangsters begin to mimic her, raising their hands and weapons in the air. Overjoyed by the unexpected result, Yunha claps her hands with a bright, happy smile. She raises her arms in a triumphant cheer, celebrating her bizarre victory. The gangsters, completely disarmed, drop their weapons and cheerfully wave their hands, following her lead. As the discarded weapons lay on the ground, Ji-hwan watches with a deadly serious expression. Flak Ji-hwan suddenly drops down, swiftly grabbing a pipe and an axe from the floor. Wham! In a blur of motion, Ji-hwan attacks the distracted gangsters, taking them by surprise. The shocked Aongi members cry out, as Ji-hwan efficiently takes them down. With a pole resting on his shoulder, Ji-hwan coolly warns the remaining gangsters that the first one who moves dies. Ji-hwan orders Il-young to bring the rope, and his subordinate eagerly complies. Grabbing the defeated leader, Ji-hwan tells him to go and deliver a message to his boss, Yaongi. Hoisting the man by his collar, Ji-hwan threatens him to do his job properly to avoid future disturbances. The scene shifts to a golf range, introducing Go Yang-hee, the 45-year-old head of the Yaongi faction. Go Yang-hee seethes as his defeated men bow before him, furiously questioning how 10 gangsters lost to a single woman. The scarred leader admits that their defeat at her hands was unacceptable. Go Yanghe grits his teeth, muttering that he's disliked that punk Seo Ji-hwan from the very beginning. In a flashback, a powerful-looking man places a hand on his young son's shoulder, telling him that he's counting on him. The man instructs a younger Go Yanghe to teach his son well so he can follow in his footsteps. The powerful man looks down with a sneer of contempt. He scoffs internally, wondering how they can possibly make use of such a weakling. The scene shifts to a pair of sneakers next to a dumbbell, implying a training regimen. Boxing gloves and other training equipment hang on a wall rack. It's revealed the boy is Hyun-woo, who was separated from his mother at 13 and is now seen training fiercely on a punching bag. Pow! He lands a powerful punch on the heavy bag. Muscular, shirtless Hyun-woo reflects on becoming a human weapon after a year of harsh training. Memory flashes of a trainer screaming at a younger Hyun-woo in the boxing ring, calling him a useless brat. In the present, Hyun-woo continues his training with a grim and hardened expression. A memory flashes to a bruised younger Hyun-woo shouting that he doesn't want to fight, he wants to study, as Go Yanghe watches him sternly. Wham! Go Yanghe violently strikes the boy, sending him stumbling backward. Grabbing the boy's hair, Go Yanghe leans in close and tells him to listen carefully. He coldly informs Hyun-woo that as the son of the bulldog boss, he is a gangster and has no choice but to fight. Go Yanghe threatens Hyun-woo's mother to force him to fight, and the narration reveals that he quickly adapted to the organization after that. The scene shifts to a handsome, well-dressed Ji-hwan, with the narration explaining he became the boss in his early 20s. In another flashback, Ji-hwan addresses his men, stating that only those willing to start a new life should follow him. A younger Go Yanghe stares in disbelief and fury at Ji-hwan's declaration. The flashback ends as a furious Go Yanghe questions Ji-hwan's recent actions, like destroying loan documents and bringing a woman into their business. Arrogant brat, he seethes, enraged that Ji-hwan dares to look down on them. His scarred subordinate reports that the woman seemed to use hypnosis, concluding she's not ordinary, especially since Ji-hwan brought her. A sinister smirk spreads across Go Yanghe's face as he listens. He orders his men to investigate Yoon-ha's relationship with Ji-hwan, as a pensive Yoon-ha is shown in profile. Meanwhile, Ji-hwan is at his desk, intently focused on his laptop. He's watching one of Yoon-ha's sister Minnie videos, thinking that while he thought she was just a cute kid, she's actually very cool. He reflects that no one ever protected him before, but Yoon-ha was so reliable, imagining her standing guard behind him. Recalling her nervous lecture to the gangsters, he realizes how scared she must have been. Looking up from his desk, he notes that they now have only one meeting left. Yoon-ha cheers with her arms in the air. In a meeting, Il-yong recounts to the other members how the killer lady single-handedly reversed the situation against the armed faction. Il-yong proudly announces their decision to welcome her as their sister, and the other men hum in happy agreement. A stubbled member gets an idea, suggesting they welcome her as their brother's wife instead. He elaborates on her merits, picturing her as a talented protector and a beautiful bride, the perfect wife. Whack! Il-yong snaps his fingers with a brilliant realization, wondering why he hadn't thought of it himself. As Il-yong muses that Ji-hwan won't be a bachelor for life, a long-haired member thinks he likes the idea of a smart and strong sister-in-law. However, a man with reddish-brown hair points out that their older brother has no interest in women. The reddish-haired man suddenly remembers the deal, recalling that their brother offered 100 million won just to meet her 3 times. Blushing, he wonders aloud if there could be another reason for the arrangement, piquing the other's curiosity. The men strike comical poses, as someone suggests Ji-hwan wants to learn her skills. The other members praise Il-yong for his insight, calling him the real deal as he blushes. The scene flashes to a dream of a young Yoon-ha asking a young Hyun-woo if he likes her. The young Hyun-woo asks if she'll really be his bride when they grow up, and she enthusiastically agrees. As they make a pinky promise, the scene shifts to the present, where Yoon-ha is startled to realize the voice in her dream was Hyun-woo's. Kya! Yoon-ha bolts upright in bed, screaming as she wakes from the dream. Wham! She furiously throws her pillow, frustrated that Hyun-woo keeps appearing in her dreams. She concludes that her recurring dreams must be because she keeps getting involved with Ji-hwan. Determined, she grabs her phone, deciding to meet him one last time and end their connection. Sometime later, a dapper Ji-hwan stands in a plaza, checking his phone while waiting. A warm smile lights up his face as he calls out, "Yoon-ha!" Yoon-ha notes his neat black suit and internally jokes about whether he owns any other clothes. Ji-hwan thanks her for helping him escape the last crisis, admitting he was careless, and asking if she was surprised. Admitting she was a little surprised, Yoon-ha smiles and says it was fine since the men were more innocent than she thought. "You're too naive," Ji-hwan warns sternly, telling her the gangsters are dangerous and she should stay away from them. Yoon-ha thinks he's one to talk, before he asks what she wants to do or if they should get the meal they missed. She hesitates, thinking that having a meal would lead to awkward conversation. She realizes that if they watch a movie, they won't have to talk at all. She nervously asks Ji-hwan if he would like to go watch a movie with her. Ji-hwan looks completely taken aback by her offer, leaving Yoon-ha embarrassed by his strong reaction. As he starts to let her off the hook, she quickly insists, "Let's go." As they line up at the movie theater, something at the counter suddenly catches Yoon-ha's eye. Spotting a poster for Zombies of Dawn 3, Yoon-ha excitedly suggests they watch the new zombie movie. Ji-hwan's face turns purple with terror as he nervously questions if she's really talking about a zombie movie. Yoon-ha asks if he dislikes it, but Ji-hwan, avoiding her gaze, reluctantly agrees to go. In the theater, Yoon-ha is giddy with excitement while a horrified Ji-hwan clutches his popcorn in fear. On screen, a blood-splattered man with a pitchfork vows to kill all the zombies. Wham! The movie character skewers a zombie's head, only to realize in panic that another one is right behind him. While other patrons scream in terror, a delighted Yoon-ha clasps her hands, thinking this thrilling taste is what zombie movies are all about. Whack! A gruesome zombie attack flashes across the movie screen. Yoon-ha squeals with joy, loving how thrilling and exciting the movie is. As popcorn flies through the air, she feels a vibration and wonders if the theater has a 4D feature. She turns to see Ji-hwan shaking violently and asks with concern if he is okay. Her eyes widen as she notices his face has turned deathly pale. Whack! She grabs his arm, firmly telling him to come with her. In a hallway, she apologizes to a kneeling Ji-hwan, saying he should have told her he dislikes scary movies. Ji-hwan tries to brush it off as just a movie, but Yoon-ha internally thinks he looks like a big kid. Patting his back reassuringly, she tells him she'll take care of the zombies and that it's not real. She kneels to comfort the shaken Ji-hwan, telling him not to be scared. Later, Ji-hwan sits at his desk in his office, seen from behind. He reflects that while it was a simple movie for others, it was different for him. He remembers the horror of his first gang fight at 16, where he witnessed people dying before his eyes. He clenches his fist, feeling disgraced for showing weakness as the movie brought back that nightmarish memory. Recalling how she comforted him, he thinks about how his heart raced in that moment. He misinterprets her kindness, believing she must have just thought he was a kind guy. He sadly reflects that it was their third and final meeting, and they parted without a proper goodbye. Looking at a picture of a smiling Yoon-ha, he laments that they probably won't meet again, even if he suggests it. His thoughts are interrupted by a noise from outside his room. He emerges to ask Il-young and the reddish-haired man about what the gas station employee said. Il-young refers to her as Sister Yoon-ha, prompting the reddish-haired man to scold him for using the honorific. The reddish-haired man asks if her standards are high, and Il-young confirms that's what he was told. Il-young reports that Yoon-ha mentioned she has someone she plans to marry, leaving Ji-hwan looking shocked. The reddish-haired man confirms to Ji-hwan that the lady said she has someone she will marry. Stunned, Ji-hwan silently wonders who her fiancé could possibly be. Tap! He looks down, a somber expression on his face. Standing alone by a door, he reasons that it's not surprising for someone from a household like Yoon-ha's to have a fiancé. An imagined scene shows a handsome man in a gray suit embracing a smiling Yoon-ha. A memory of Yoon-ha happily asking to watch a movie together flashes through his mind. Someone pours a frothy glass of beer from a tap. At a bar, Yoon-ha sits alone, wondering why she hasn't heard from Ji-hwan. She sighs, thinking that several days have already passed since they parted ways at the theater. A white car is seen on a city street as she wonders what's happening. In a flashback, Ji-hwan sits beside Yoon-ha in a car, offering her a small paper gift bag. She nervously accepts it, her mind racing as she wonders if it's a threat or some strange object. Startled, she looks down at the mysterious gift bag. Ji-hwan presents a green frog eye headband, explaining he got it because she had wanted it, though he apologizes if he was mistaken. Yoon-ha holds the headband, recalling that she couldn't bring herself to say she wanted it and just let it go. Back at the bar, Yoon-ha looks at her phone, concluding that since he gave her a gift, he must want to meet again. Her thoughts are interrupted when an unseen person asks if she's meeting with Yena. A woman with short, dark hair appears, asking what she's up to as a flustered Enka ruffles her own hair. The woman playfully takes a seat, eager to know how her third date with the gangster boss went. Yunha explains she had to comfort him during a scary zombie movie, laughing as she adds that he's peculiar but attractive. Her friend scoffs at the idea, reminding Yunha that he's a criminal after all. Tap. Her finger hovers over her phone, which displays a loan advertisement. No contact, huh? Her friend asks, finding it strange since she was sure he was interested in Yunha, who can only sigh in agreement. Yunha eagerly asks if her friend thinks he'll contact her again, prompting her friend to slyly ask if she's now interested in him too. The friend teases that Yunha is a fascinating case for still searching for her childhood crush, but Yunha insists she is only interested in Hyunwoo. Despite her words, Yunha looks down at her phone with a conflicted and pensive expression. As her phone buzzes, she anxiously dismisses it, trying to convince herself that whether she gets a call or not is now irrelevant. Elsewhere, a striking woman with long, reddish-brown hair walks across a crosswalk, turning heads as people wonder if she's a celebrity. With a determined look, the woman thinks to herself that she's finally going to meet Seo Ji-hwan. She recalls being surprised to run into him at a charity auction, where she saw him make a staggering 100 million won bid. She reflects on how she almost gave up on finding him after 3 years with only his name to go on, amazed that they're finally meeting again. In a flashback, she remembers her past desperation. 3 years ago, a 20 million won loan from Meow Money ballooned into a 200 million won predatory debt. The loan shark had tried to force her, Yena, to work at his shop, telling her all she had to do was serve drinks to customers. Bang! The memory continues as Jawan bursts through the door, taking out a goon with a powerful kick. A stunned Yena, dressed in a black gown and gloves for the bar, could only watch in shock. Ji-hwan had calmly asked how much she borrowed and demanded to see the loan agreement. After she nervously told him the original amount was 20 million won, he glanced at the defeated thugs and simply told her to go home. Rip. He then tore her contract to shreds, assuring her she would no longer be bothered by anyone. She had pleaded to be allowed to repay the money, but he informed her it was settled, though he did have one request. He had sternly warned her to never use a predatory loan again, and to stay away from people like him. Back in the present, Yena stands before the door to Thirsty Deer, reflecting that she's now a successful, millionaire YouTuber. She smiles confidently, thinking of herself as a perfect woman that no man could possibly resist. Inside, the reddish-haired man informs his older brother, Ji-hwan, that there's a guest waiting outside. Seated at his desk, Ji-hwan looks up and asks what kind of guest it is. The man struggles to find the words, finally saying that it's a very beautiful woman. He then makes a wild guess, Christmas? As a baffled Ji-hwan looks on. Ji-hwan's eyes widen as he wonders if it could be Yunha, questioning why she would visit after their meetings were over, and tells him to let her in. He looks on in surprise, thinking to himself that she came without any warning. However, the visitor smiles and introduces herself. I am Kang Yena. Yena explains that she's the woman who caused Yunha trouble at the charity auction as she approaches his desk. Ji-hwan stands to meet her, curtly stating that he's busy and they should get to the point. Can't you remember me? She asks, before reintroducing herself as Kang Yena, a creator from the same company as Eunha. She explains that he might not recall her from when she was working at a bar, but she's now a popular creator, and asks if he remembers their encounter years ago. A confused Ji-hwan simply replies, I'm not sure. She specifies it was at a salon in the XX building, but seeing his continued confusion, she changes tactics, saying she just wanted to thank him and repay the money. Smiling expectantly, she asks if he remembers now, thinking to herself that he surely must. With a completely stoic expression, Ji-hwan delivers a one-word answer, no. Turning away, he instructs his subordinate, Jungjian, to escort the guest out, leaving both Yena and Jungjian stunned. Yena stands dejected, while Jungjian thinks to himself, wondering where a woman like her could possibly be all alone. Whoosh, Ji-hwan walks right past them, not giving Yena a second glance. The scene ends on his back as he walks out of the room, leaving no doubt about his disinterest. The scene shifts to Seo Ji-hwan's house, where he sits on a couch with a tablet while a blonde-haired man stands nearby. The blonde-haired man directly asks Ji-hwan if he has any interest in girls at all. He points out that most men their age are dating or getting married, but Ji-hwan retorts by telling him not to talk nonsense. The man presses on, asking why he hasn't contacted her lately, causing a startled Ji Huan to reply, "Who?" Arguing that she's an important person he should be close to, the man is swiftly silenced by Ji Huan's threat of punishment if he mentions her again. The blonde man immediately bows in defeat, saying, "Yes, brother," as Ji Huan walks away. Alone now, Ji Huan sighs and brushes back his hair, looking worn out from the conversation. Elsewhere, his subordinates discuss the situation, with one noting that he won't even let them talk about it, while another clarifies he's trying to protect someone's safety. One brother asks what to do, while Il-young notes that Ji Huan seems to only have eyes for Miss Yunha. Aha! Il-young slams his hand on the table as he gets a brilliant idea. He gathers his brothers, beckoning them to come closer as he suggests a new plan. 10 days later, Yunha, wearing the frog headband, sadly thinks that it might have been the last time she saw Seo Ji Huan. She tries to reassure herself, thinking he's probably fine, since he's a good fighter. A colleague calls out to Yunha, telling her someone is waiting outside, and she wonders who it could be. Wow! Her face beams with excitement as she realizes Seo Ji Huan is here. She eagerly rushes through a cafe to meet her expected visitor. Inside, several female employees swoon over a guest, with a thought bubble wondering if it's Seo Ji Huan. The handsome visitor is revealed to be the ashen blonde man, whom the smitten employees greet as Mr. Il-young. Yunha's bright smile fades into disappointment when she realizes it's not Ji Huan. The ashen blonde man greets her as sister, prompting her to wonder when that happened, while politely asking what he needs. Sitting across from her, he asks if she would be willing to be his tutor, surprising her. He explains that he and his blockhead employees need tutoring for the high school equivalency exam. The ashen blonde man clarifies that they need direct instruction for middle and high school, leaving her speechless. Yunha panics internally, overwhelmed by the daunting task of tutoring so many people. A painful memory surfaces of a man with glasses grabbing her as she yells that his proposal is a bad joke. A darker memory emerges of a shadowy figure holding a knife, angrily questioning her for making money that way. She recalls how her parents opposed every choice she made apart from studying. The flashback shows her parents restraining a man while she kneels in despair, remembering their opposition to her becoming a creator. Yunha reflects on her past tutoring experience, uneasy about the prospect of teaching gangsters. She looks at the ashen blonde man, beginning to politely decline his offer. She anxiously wonders if the boss will be joining the lessons, while the ashen blonde man thinks that's not the case. Looking downcast, Yunha clutches her arm, clearly conflicted about the decision. She recalls asking Ji Huan why he became a gangster, and him stating there are no cool gangsters in the real world. Her memory continues to a time he asked what she wanted to do, as she thinks about him cutting her off after 3 meetings. With renewed determination, she clenches her fist, questioning why he gave her 100 million won to help her. Arriving at a massive house, Yunha marvels at its size as a voice from the intercom says they will open the door. As the large door slides open, she peers inside, wondering if he's a conglomerate CEO. The ashen blonde man greets her with a beaming smile and open arms, cheerfully calling her sister. He ushers her inside, announcing her arrival to the others, while a hesitant Yunha stands at the entrance. As she walks down a pristine hallway, various men enthusiastically greet her as sister while cleaning. A man in an apron offers a warm welcome, and Yunha thinks the house looks like it's straight out of a drama. A narrative panel explains that 10 members of Ji Huan's disbanded Bulldog Squad now work as detectives at Thirsty Deer. Narration continues, explaining that the men have hot tempers and are weak to temptation, requiring guidance to stay on the right path. As one man clips another's toenails, narration concludes that Yunha has just been invited into this den of men. 3 men greet her formally, bowing and asking her to please take care of them. The ashen blonde man introduces his colleagues, Jinglin, Yunxiap, and the youngest, Mingyu, who offers a polite greeting. Yunha agrees to the arrangement, and the men all cheerily respond in unison, "Yes, sister." The ashen blonde man hands her an envelope for the first session, which she accepts, assuming it's an advance payment. She gasps in shock at a check for 1 million won as he requests 2 classes per week. Flustered, Yunha trembles, while the ashen blonde man scolds Mingyu over a calculation error, detailing the correct payment breakdown. Jinglin puts Mingyu in a headlock, yelling that his math is wrong, while Yunyu questions the numbers herself. Mingyu blames the phone's calculator. Another man wishes they'd used an accountant, and Yoonha resolves to assess their abilities. As the men take a test, the ashen blonde brother calls out to Big Brother while squinting at his paper. A close-up reveals one of the men has poorly written a simple sentence and crossed it out. Jinglin and the ashen blonde brother laugh, comparing a squinting Ji-hwan to the Grim Reaper, much to Yoonha's exhaustion. Forcing a smile, Yoonha decides to try something easier, as one of the men asks to move on to the second round. Yoonha stands on a chair to lead a lesson, and the men are impressed, thinking her acting is a critical hit. Jinglin and the ashen blonde brother praise her performance, calling her a seasoned actor. As the ashen blonde man mutters that the idiots deserve to disappear, Yoonha resolves to fix their manners as well as their studies. Yoonha turns around in shock, asking what on earth they are all doing. Seo Ji-hwan appears in the doorway, looking in on the chaotic tutoring session. A dramatic panel highlights a stunned Seo Ji-hwan, who has just arrived. A promotional panel with stylized text appears, marking a brief pause in the story. Ji-hwan stands frozen in the doorway, his expression one of utter shock. His men stand and greet him as Big Brother, while he walks in asking what is happening. As Yoonha watches, Ji-hwan's inner thoughts reveal his complete surprise. Why is Yoonha here? Later, Ji-hwan sits at his desk, admitting to himself that staying away from her is harder than quitting smoking. He watches a video on his phone of a cheerful Yoonha wearing her frog headband and introducing herself as Minnie. Finding her video genuinely fun, Ji-hwan wonders why more people don't appreciate her content. Holding his phone up to his laptop, he looks at her channel page with a confused, "Huh?" Ji-hwan looks annoyed, wondering if his brother has a crush on Yoonha. He forces himself to stop watching, deciding to go exercise to clear his head. Pausing at the door, Ji-hwan overhears the commotion and thinks about the critical hit they took. He listens as Yoonha scolds the men for their behavior, while they cower and laugh dramatically. Wham! Ji-hwan bursts in, demanding to know what they are doing, as the startled men exclaim, "Big Brother." With a menacing glare, Ji-hwan listens as his men sheepishly explain they hired her as a tutor for the GED test. Ji-hwan is dumbfounded, thinking it's absurd they're studying when they scream over simple math problems. Yoonha watches him, wondering why he's bringing this chaotic scene right in front of her. Ji-hwan bluntly says, "Let's go," but Yoonha stands her ground, protesting that the class isn't over yet. He orders his men to take Yoonha home, stating they will talk after she's gone. Wait a minute. Yoonha stops him, angrily declaring he is a really bad person. She scolds him for discouraging people who want to learn, while his men watch in awe, shocked at her boldness. Ji-hwan insists they aren't the type to study, but Yoonha fires back, asking why he's judging them, while his men secretly admit they were just trying to set them up. The ashen blonde brother steps in, asking Yoonha to be honest with him, while promising to take full responsibility. Yoonha bypasses Ji-hwan and directly asks the men if they truly want to study or not, putting them on the spot. A fierce standoff ensues, with Ji-hwan depicted as a roaring lion and Yoonha as a hissing cat, as the men realize they're caught in the middle. Believing it's a do-or-die situation, the men make their choice, emphatically yelling that they want to study. The men desperately insist to a furious Ji-hwan that they truly want to learn, giving Yoonha the upper hand. Tak! Ji-hwan turns away in defeat, begrudgingly admitting he can't call their sudden passion admirable. Yoonha triumphantly shoves Ji-hwan out of the room, ordering him to stop interrupting the class. Wham! She slams the door in his face as the men marvel, realizing their sister has defeated their brother. Shivering with admiration, the four men conclude that their sister is incredibly talented. Ji-hwan paces the living room, brooding over what good could possibly come from guys like them being involved with Yoonha. He stops, a small smile appearing as he admits to himself it's a good thing, since he can now see Yoonha in the evening. Back in the classroom, Yoonha makes a solemn vow to teach them until every single one of them passes the exam. Ji-hwan scoffs at the idea of her teaching the amoeba-like men a middle school curriculum in just 6 months, thinking ignorance is bliss. His inner thoughts continue, doubting her ability to teach men with no interest in studying and the shortest of leashes. Yoonha interrupts his thoughts with a shocking proposal, asking what happens if even one of them fails. She boldly declares that if they fail, she will grant him one wish, excluding any unreasonable demands. Ji-hwan is stunned, internally questioning her logic for making such a bet. Yoonha clarifies the terms. If she wins, he must let her teach the civil service exam curriculum, while Ji-hwan realizes If he wins, she will grant him anything. Ji-hwan silently accepts the bet, and Yoon-ha gives a slight nod of satisfaction. As he leaves, Ji-hwan warns her not to make a fuss while he's gone. Hwak. Yoon-ha retorts with a fierce threat, promising to name the villain in her next video Ji-hwan if they cause trouble. HWIP. Ji-hwan walks away, leaving Yoon-ha standing defiantly. The ashen blonde man talks with Yoon-ha as Ji-hwan thinks about how upsetting it is to be treated like a bad guy by her. The men announce class is over and see Yoon-ha off, nervously wondering if they're in trouble after her talk with their big brother. The men speculate about their impending punishment, guessing between a first-come, first-served list and burpees before Yoon-ha interrupts them. She reassures the anxious men not to worry, promising that their brother won't scold them. HWIP. They turn to see Ji-hwan sitting ominously at his desk, waiting for them. Fuming, Ji-hwan sits with a dark, lion-like aura, wondering what on earth Yoon-ha said to him. The men envision Yoon-ha as their guardian angel, now certain that she is the only one who can be their sister-in-law. Back home, Yoon-ha plops down on the floor, frustrated that Ji-hwan didn't even bother with a proper greeting. She recalls his curt dismissal, thinking he treated her like a common peddler. Fired up with indignation, she vows to see him twice a week and declares she will definitely go. During the next lesson, Yoon-ha struggles to teach basic addition as the men resort to ineffective finger counting. A split screen contrasts Yoon-ha's teaching frustrations with Ji-hwan happily watching her mini-uni videos, as she thinks that with enough will, anything is possible. Leaning against the door, Ji-hwan listens to the laughter from inside and wonders what they're so amused by. He scowls with jealousy, annoyed that his men are the only ones getting to see Yoon-ha smile. With a final glance, a frustrated Ji-hwan walks away down the hall. Yoon-ha presents a new word problem, asking the men to calculate how much food dogs eat per week. The men are utterly baffled by the math, questioning the logistics of 6 dogs eating 3 bags of food. 2 of the men laugh, joking that the dogs must eat like pigs and are therefore pig dogs. Barely holding it together, Yoon-ha struggles to focus and instructs them to stop talking and concentrate on the problem. A sudden sound startles Yoon-ha, and the ashen blonde man announces it's an emergency assembly order. A man rushes in shouting that something big is happening, while a long-haired man reports they're being pushed back and asks for a head count. The man confirms about 100 enemies have rushed in, leaving Yoon-ha terrified as she realizes she's surrounded by gangsters. The ashen blonde man frantically asks where their older brother is, panicked that he's nowhere to be found and not answering his phone. An urgent order is given to get extension cords and be on standby, causing Yoon-ha to panic, fearing another gang fight. The ashen blonde man grabs a confused Yoon-ha, insisting she come with them. Outside by a large black van, the ashen blonde man tells a bewildered Yoon-ha that she must go first. He explains that every person counts in this situation, while Yoon-ha internally despairs at being dragged into another mess. She wonders if they are completely mistaken about her, recalling a time they believed she had hypnotized them. As Yoon-ha tries to protest that she's just an ordinary person, the ashen blonde man shoves her into the van. While the van speeds away, one of the men casually mentions sharpening his knife to separate bones, making Yoon-ha shriek in terror. As the van continues, Yoon-ha desperately considers calling the police for help. She quickly dismisses the idea, realizing she can't get her people in trouble, as she already considers the men her own. Screech! The van pulls up to a large truck, and the men usher a confused Yoon-ha out, directing her toward it. The truck doors open to reveal dozens of hanging pig carcasses, leaving Yoon-ha utterly stunned. A worker apologizes, explaining there are too many for them to handle alone. The man explains that a surprise government inspection of pig farms put many local operations on alert. He concludes that they were flooded with dozens of pigs at once, causing Yoon-ha to finally realize this is a meat processing company, not a gang operation. The ashen blonde man invites Yoon-ha inside while his men, now carrying carcasses, assure her they'll handle the meat. Inside the factory, workers in protective gear are shown processing large quantities of meat on conveyor belts. Standing on a walkway, Yoon-ha looks down at the massive, busy factory floor in awe. She watches a worker open a case of gleaming knives and finally understands what he meant by sharpening the knife. Ouch. A stern female coworker grabs Yoon-ha, scolding the newbie for standing around while they're so busy. Ming-yu looks up startled, knife in hand, as he sees Yoon-ha being carried off screaming by the worker. His brothers call out to Ming-yu, who is still kneeling by his knife set, and he acknowledges them. The men wonder where Yoon-ha has gone, noting she was just there a moment ago. They worry she's been caught, with one lamenting that he hoped to impress her with the factory. A spark of inspiration hits Mingyu as he calls out to his brothers. Stroking his chin with a smirk, Mingyu announces that he just had a great idea. On the factory floor, the stern coworker tells Yunha to start with an easy task, packing boxes. The coworker asks Yunha how she ended up in school, a slang term for jail, which leaves Yunha completely baffled. Yunha explains she went after her college entrance exam, further confusing the coworker, who asks what crime she committed. As Yunha insists she took the test, the woman laughs it off, saying everyone has their story. The coworker offers some encouragement, but warns Yunha that the boss is not a forgiving person. Huak. Yunha shocks her coworkers by asking if they mean Mr. Seo Ji-hwan, causing them to gasp. The women angrily scold Yunha for her lack of manners in using the boss's full name, and she quickly apologizes. A coworker explains their reverence, stating that the boss is like a benefactor to them all. Yunha reflects on the gangster-like atmosphere of the company, even as the women yell at each other to work faster. Curious, Yunha asks what their president, Mr. Seo, did before, but she is told to ask the foreman instead. The woman calls the foreman over to train the newbie, and a man responds with an enthusiastic, "Oh my gosh." A man in a heart-adorned apron poses dramatically, complaining about being called away from his work. Wah! The foreman reveals to a horrified Yunha that their boss is the son of the head of the notorious Bulldog Gang. Meanwhile, Ji-hwan is on the phone, asking where everyone is. His brother explains they're at the factory dealing with 100 pigs. Ji-hwan grows concerned, thinking something is wrong and questioning why his sister Yunha is at the factory. Over the phone, Ji-hwan asks for clarification, and his brother casually confirms he brought Yunha along for help. Ji-hwan furiously shouts into the phone, demanding his brother bring Yunha back to the house immediately. His brother refuses, claiming it's an emergency and cheekily suggests Ji-hwan should come himself if it's so important. Ji-hwan reluctantly agrees to come, and his brother smiles victoriously, having successfully lured him over. One of the men, Il-young, calls out to Yunha, who greets him by name. Yunha proudly shows Il-young the box she has meticulously labeled, but he tells her it's not the time for that. Il-young suggests they go somewhere quiet to talk, leaving a confused Yunha wondering what he means. He leads her to a door, telling her to wait inside and that he'll be back soon. Yunha finds herself alone in a dark warehouse, questioning why she was brought there. Ji-hwan suddenly appears in the warehouse, asking a surprised Yunha if she is all right. Ji-hwan tries to play it cool, but internally curses his men for their matchmaking scheme. Hwang Ji-hwan and Yunha stand in the cold, tense silence of the locked warehouse. Ji-hwan's expression hardens as he internally resolves that there's no way he'll let this situation continue. Outside, Mingyu and the men celebrate their successful ploy, confident their matchmaking plan will work. The men imagine a romantic movie scene where Ji-hwan and Yunha huddle for warmth, comically acting it out themselves. Mingyu, disgusted by his brother's antics, snaps back to reality, worrying about Ji-hwan's inevitable wrath. Unfazed, the men declare they are prepared to face the consequences. They daydream about their ultimate goal, seeing Ji-hwan and Yunha get married, believing it's worth any punishment. Back in the cold warehouse, Yunha nervously asks if they're truly trapped. Ji-hwan realizes he's been tricked, lured to the factory by his men with a fake story about Yunha collapsing. Worried, Yunha asks if Ji-hwan has his phone, offering to call Il-young, but he reveals he left it in a locker. Ji-hwan explains his phone wouldn't help anyway, causing Yunha to panic about freezing, but he quickly says no. He points out they're in a thawing room, not a freezer, leaving Yunha to wonder about Il-young's motives. Ji-hwan knows his men are trying to set them up, but decides he can't say that out loud. Yunha's imagination runs wild, as she fears Il-young has been bribed by the rival Miao Miao gang. Ji-hwan dismisses her fears by calling his men playful, while Yunha concludes they must be acting out from too much homework. He tells her to hang on, promising to get them out soon as he grabs a couple of chairs. He sets a chair down for her, but then sits on the cold floor himself, leaving Yunha speechless. As Yunha sits down, shivering, she senses that something about the situation feels strange. She notices how unusually quiet Ji-hwan is as he sits silently on the floor. Her thoughts drift to Ji-hwan, reflecting on the man he is now. Meanwhile, his employees praise his kindness, recalling how he personally asks about their families and brings gifts for their children. In a flashback, Yoonha asks the foreman about the Meow Meow gang, shocking him. The foreman reveals the gang's sordid past of loan sharking and selling young women to bars. Yoonha breathes a sigh of relief, realizing her fears about Ji-hwan were completely unfounded. Back in the present, Yoonha apologizes, leaving a confused Ji-hwan to ask what she's talking about. She notes his calm tone and explains that she heard about his true character from the other employees. Ji-hwan presses for details, wondering what she could have possibly said to them. Shivering from the cold, Yoonha changes the subject, asking when they can leave. Whack! Ji-hwan suddenly rises to his feet, startling Yoonha. He announces he's about to do something bad for a moment as he removes his jacket, shocking Yoonha. As he approaches, a terrified Yoonha asks what he's planning to do. He gently drapes his jacket over her shoulders to keep her warm. Mortified, Yoonha realizes her misunderstanding as Ji-hwan questions her shocked reaction. Be beyond JJEOK. Before she can react, he scoops her up into his arms. Holding her close, he seems resolved to endure the intimate proximity. Teal Seok. He sits back down on the floor, settling her comfortably in his lap. Nestled against him, a flustered Yoonha holds onto his shirt for support. Feeling awkward, Yana protests that he must be cold too, but he insists he's fine and that it's necessary. He tells her to stay still to conserve heat, holding her tightly as she realizes he won't let go. It's a relief to be held, she thinks, finally feeling safe after being constantly anxious and alone since leaving home with nothing. A flashback shows her younger self walking away into the darkness, alone with only her suitcase. Back in the present, she looks up at him, wondering if this moment is really okay. As she leans against him, she notices a pleasant mint scent. She feels the firmness and warmth of his body, a new and startling realization for her. He looks down, gently telling her that her face is frozen. They continue to huddle together for warmth on the cold warehouse floor. Ji-hwan remains silent, a thoughtful expression on his face as he holds her. He notices she has fallen asleep in his arms, contemplating whether to wake her. As he holds the sleeping Yoonha, Ji-hwan's thoughts soften, wondering if he dares to hug her. Peeking out of the thawing room, the stern coworker is shocked to see her boss and wonders why he is there. Shh! Ji-hwan signals for quiet as he walks past the stunned female employees with the sleeping Yoonha in his arms. He stands tall, protectively holding Yoonha as she sleeps peacefully against him. Watching them, the coworkers blush and excitedly whisper among themselves, concluding that Yoonha must be the boss's wife. The scene shifts to the exterior of a lavish, modern home at dusk. Inside, Ji-hwan's men stand with heads bowed as Mingyu accepts full responsibility, ready to take his punishment. Mingyu and the others tremble in fear, anticipating their boss's severe wrath. Looking up in complete confusion, Mingyu can only manage a questioning, huh? Ji-hwan explains that because he entered the room without disinfecting, the meat cannot be sold and suggests they should eat it themselves. He orders his stunned men to clean the thawing room, and they dazedly agree to their punishment. As the others turn to leave, Ji-hwan questions Mingyu, asking why he isn't already running off to the factory. Realizing their punishment is just simple cleaning, Mingyu and his brothers light up with relief. The men happily scamper off, promising to return, while Ji-hwan watches them go, deciding to let it slide this once. Are you looking to find out if there's a specific kind of business in the area, or if certain businesses are open right now? We're here to help you get the answers you need. On a busy film set, a director calls for props and a lighting check, while Yoonha stands in the background. Yoonha, now wearing a cute sprout hairpin, realizes she must have fallen asleep in the waiting room earlier. In a flashback, Ji-hwan asks for a sleeping Yoonha's address as he holds her in his lap. Still asleep, she mumbles the address of her office tel, leaning against his shoulder. Back in the present, Yoonha touches her chin thoughtfully, concluding that Ji-hwan must have taken her home. Overcome with guilt, Yoonha reflects that Ji-hwan is actually a kind person and regrets treating him like a villain and hitting him. Holding two stick puppets, she explains that she has created good Ji-hwan and bad Yang-hee to represent them. She makes the puppets act out an apology, crying theatrically as a way to atone for her past actions. Checking the time, Yoonha sighs in relief, noting that her packed schedule is finally over. A woman with reddish-brown hair calls out to her as Unnie, and Yoonha turns around. The woman, Yena, greets Yoonha and remarks on how busy she seems to be these days. Yena reminds Yoonha about her promise to clean their house, and Yoonha agrees, asking when she should come. Tomorrow, Yana states plainly, leaving Yoonha completely shocked. Yoonha apologetically explains she can't, as she has both work and a tutoring session scheduled for tomorrow. When Yena asks about her job, Yoonhee vaguely calls it a part-time gig, which Yena seems to accept. Yena insists it must be tomorrow, explaining that her friends are coming over and the house needs to be tidy. Worried, Yoonha asks if Yena is taking advantage of her situation, knowing she's in a difficult spot. Yena dismisses her concern with a laugh, promising she would never do something like that. Having made her point, Yena tells Yona to come home a little after 12 tomorrow. Yoonha resolves that repaying Yena's kindness must come first, even before dealing with Ji-hwan. The scene transitions back to the front of Ji-hwan's modern house. After disinfecting and cleaning, the exhausted men receive the last of the meat from the stern co-worker, who thanks them for their help. The worker apologizes profusely to Ming-yu, confessing she was disrespectful to the chairman's wife, and asks him to relay her apology. A confused Ming-yu asks who she means, and the worker clarifies it's the pretty lady from yesterday, assuming she'll marry the chairman. A romantic memory of Ji-hwan carrying the sleeping Yoonha appears, framed by soft purple flowers. Hearing the story, the worker and the other men blush, commenting on how affectionate the couple seems. The men celebrate wildly, popping confetti and shouting that their matchmaking plan is a success. Ji-hwan sits alone in his living room, lost in thought, anticipating Yoonha's arrival tomorrow. Ming-yu approaches, and Ji-hwan, hearing the commotion, asks him what the good news is. With a brilliant smile, Ming-yu slyly asks about Ji-hwan's tutoring session scheduled for tomorrow. Ming-yu's thoughts drift to Yena, recalling that she is Yuna's colleague. He asks Ji-hwan if he remembers Yena, mentioning that Yoonha lives in a company office-tel, which Ji-hwan confirms. Ji-hwan stands with a determined look, processing this new information. The scene shifts to an exterior view of a large, modern office-tel apartment building. Yoonha stands wearily on an apartment building's stair landing. Walking upstairs, she thinks about how lucky her popular colleague Yena is to have moved into a new apartment. She nervously remembers Ji-hwan is also supposed to meet Yena and wonders what will happen. In a flashback to a conversation at apartment 401, a man remarks on Yena's appeal while a woman resolves to just clean. At the door, Yena greets Yoonha, explaining she has a recording and will be back late tonight. Tak. Yena hands over a garbage bag and gives Yoonha a list of cleaning instructions before leaving. As Yena hurries away, Yoonha is left standing in the hall, realizing she didn't even have a chance to respond. A moment later, a foul smell hits her, and she covers her nose in disgust. She discovers the source of the smell, dirty clothes and garbage strewn across the floor. The mess is even worse than she thought, with old food containers and trash bags everywhere. Standing in the middle of the filthy apartment, Yoonha is utterly appalled by the state of the room. Tying her hair back with a bandana, she rallies her spirits, determined to clean diligently. She begins cleaning, wrinkling her nose as she picks up trash and mutters about the awful smell. Ding dong! The doorbell chimes, and Yoonha, assuming it's the landlord, moves to answer it. She opens the door to find Ji-hwan standing there, leaving her to gasp his name in shock. Huh! Yoonha recoils in complete surprise at Ji-hwan's unexpected appearance. Staring at the handsomely dressed Ji-hwan, Yoonha again whispers his name in disbelief. Still stunned, she asks him why he's there. He says he came to help clean, making Yoonha wonder if their relationship has become that close. He explains Il-young told him she was cleaning a colleague's house, and Yoonha asks how he knew the address. Ji-hwan explains he learned from the manager that Yena lives in the same company office-tel, making Yoonha realize he came on his own. Tak, Yoonha blocks his path, insisting she can manage and that it's her turn to repay his kindness from the factory incident. She stands her ground firmly, telling him he can't enter without the owner's permission. Bang! She slams the door shut, telling him to wait outside until she's finished. Ji-hwan patiently sits on the floor in the hallway, waiting for her. After cleaning, Yoonha opens the door with trash bags, tells Ji-hwan she's finished, and suggests they eat. He offers to carry the trash for her, and she hesitates for a moment. Blushing from his kind gesture, she asks a seemingly random question about being the youngest in a family. Whoosh! With a sudden realization, she claps her hands and says she will be right back after taking out the food waste. Ji-hwan calls out for her to let him help, but she cheerfully insists she can handle this one thing herself. She trips and falls, clutching her ankle in pain as a worried Ji-hwan rushes to her side. He asks where a clinic is, and after she gives directions, he offers to carry her there. Without waiting for a reply, he simply says, "Excuse me," and sweeps her up into his arms. Thud, He swiftly kicks the apartment door closed behind them. He carries the injured Yoonha through the building's hallway. Meanwhile, Yana walks down the street, idly wondering if Yoonha is enjoying a nice meal by now. Face to face, she stops dead in her tracks, coming across Ji-hwan carrying a pained Yoonha. Yana stammers Ji-hwan's name in shock as he glares at her with a menacing expression. Terrified by his cold fury, Yana can only sputter for him to wait. Ignoring her completely, Ji-hwan walks past, dryly commenting, "Nice house," as he carries Eunha away. He continues on with a grimly determined look on his face. At the orthopedic clinic, a doctor advises Yoonha to be careful with her small bruise for a few days and prescribes medication. Outside, Ji-hwan offers to carry her again, much to her flustered surprise. As he carries her through a crowd, she feels embarrassed while onlookers whisper about the newlyweds. She insists she can walk, but he silently reminds her of the doctor's orders. When he continues to carry her without a word, she feels flustered that he's ignoring her protests. Desperate, she suggests a compromise. "Then how about you give me a piggyback ride?" As he gives her a piggyback ride, she worries about being heavy, but he reminds her he did the same in the cold thawing room. She explains she only fell asleep then because of the cold, while thinking to herself how safe she truly felt in his warm arms. As he carries her, Yoonha thanks Ji-hwan for his kindness and worries about him, but he reassures her that he's fine. Continuing their walk, Yoonha asks about his age, and they discover he's 30 while she's 27. Surprised, Yoonha asks how he knew about her search for her brother, and he reveals it's common gossip at work. She confesses that looking for her childhood crush is just an excuse to dodge dating questions, wondering if it's strange to still be searching. Stop. Ji-hwan suddenly halts, revealing it's been a long time and that the person she's looking for is now abroad. Yoonha sadly accepts this news while Ji-hwan gives a knowing, gentle smile. Yoonha then asks why he gave her money, and he confesses he's a fan of her channel, confirming he's her supportive commenter, Justice. Ji-hwan asks if Yana is exploiting her, but Yoonha insists she is simply repaying a favor. She passionately defends Yana as not being a bad person, though Ji-hwan seems doubtful about the nature of her cleaning. Yoonha explains that Yana generously provides most of the toys she gives to the children's ward. In a fond memory, she recalls Yana's kindness to a young girl, insisting she cares for children deeply. Ji-hwan quietly observes that in Yoonha's eyes, there are no bad people in the world. Yoonha tells a silly cat pun, making Ji-hwan burst into hearty laughter. Startled, their lighthearted moment is broken when a young boy on the sidewalk shouts, "Mommy!" The little boy stands by his scooter and begins to cry loudly, rubbing his eyes. Both Yoonha and Ji-hwan look on, completely confused by the sudden development. As Ji-hwan sets her down, Yoonha wonders aloud why a child is crying all alone. Yoonha kneels to comfort the boy, gently introducing herself as Minnie. She tries a playful distraction by raising her hands, and to her surprise, the boy stops crying for a moment, but the calm is short-lived as he wails even louder, desperately crying for his mommy. Wah! Yoonha panics, flailing her arms and wondering what to do as the boy continues to sob. Her eyes land on his monster-themed shoes, sparking a sudden realization. The three of them stand together on the grass as Yoonha appears to have an idea. Ji-hwan leans in close to the boy and quietly says, "Whist." He asks the boy if he knows who he is, making Yoonha wonder if his plan is to scare the child into silence. Kneeling to the boy's level, Ji-hwan stuns Yoonha by declaring, "I'm a dinosaur superhero." Whoa! Ji-hwan strikes a heroic pose, proclaiming his dedication to justice and leaving Yoonha flabbergasted by his dinosaur superhero act. She recognizes the character from the cartoon Dinosaur Warrior Dinos, thinking his large frame fits the role perfectly. Huck! He claims his facial scar is from a battle with the villain Veloki, shocking Yoonha with his detailed knowledge of the show. The boy, though still doubtful, asks if he's really the dinosaur captain, and Ji-hwan offers to prove it. With a few determined footsteps, Ji-hwan walks away, leaving Yoonha and the boy watching in confusion. He firmly grabs a large decorative boulder nearby, preparing for his demonstration. To everyone's shock, he effortlessly lifts the massive boulder over his head. "You're not Ji-hwan, so don't even try this at home." Clap, clap, clap. The boy cheers in awe, while a stunned Yoonha can't believe he's lifting the rock as if it were foam. After setting the rock down, they ask the now impressed boy for his mom's location or phone number. The boy hopefully asks if Captain will take him to his mom, and Ji-hwan gently agrees, asking where they were separated. The boy points confidently, explaining he last saw his mom in front of the nearby department store. Yoonha realizes the store is a short walk away, and, despite her injured ankle, insists she can make it if they go slowly. Ji-hwan declares it's time to find his mom and easily picks the boy up. With the happy boy perched on his shoulders, Ji-hwan sets off, with Yoonha walking carefully beside them. The boy asks why the dinosaur captain is here, and Ji-hwan explains he came for a lost child, making Yoonha think the hero role suits him well. Whispering, Yoonha asks how he's so familiar with the cartoon, and he explains he plays with kids at a local daycare. Just as Yoonha declares they're safe, they spot a frantic woman who appears to be the boy's mother. The mother cries out her son's name, In-sung Ah, her face a mix of shock and relief. The boy happily greets his mom as she rushes over, anxiously checking if he's hurt anywhere. She pulls him into a tight hug, scolding him for worrying her so much as Yoonha watches the emotional reunion. But as the mother looks up at Ji-hwan, her expression shifts from relief to suspicion as she asks who he is. Her tone turns accusatory as she angrily demands to know who they are for taking her child, leaving Yoonha bewildered. Yoonha stands frozen, looking utterly stunned and hurt by the mother's sudden hostility. The mother protectively pulls her son back, asking how they lured him. But Ji-hwan cuts her off with a cold, "Are you done talking?" Blah. As the boy continues to cry, Yoonha tries to explain to the mother that they were only trying to help her lost child. Seeing the situation escalate, Ji-hwan takes Yoonha's hand and says, "Let's go," ignoring her protests as he insists they leave. Without warning, he lifts her over his shoulder, causing her to cry out his name in shock as he simply apologizes. Later that night at a quiet park, he sets her down and reassures her that it's okay, as these kinds of misunderstandings happen all the time. Yoonha passionately disagrees, recounting how the woman treated her like a kidnapper and how unfair it felt. She argues that anyone would have thought the same, then immediately contradicts herself, questioning why that should be considered natural. Looking down with a hint of self-reproach, she claims her face is self-made, implying she's responsible for how she's perceived. Ji-hwan watches her with a gentle, knowing smile under the soft glow of a street lamp. Back at his office, a blonde-haired colleague asks Ji-hwan why he returned so late, but he dismisses it as nothing. Clattering, the colleague places a cute, dog-faced cake on the desk as a snack, causing Ji-hwan to let out a small PFFT. When asked why he is laughing, Ji-hwan covers his amusement and tells his colleague to go rest. He privately muses that the determined expression on the cake's dog face reminds him of Yoonha from earlier. The scene shifts back to Yoonha and Ji-hwan standing together under the starry night sky. They stand quietly in the empty park, the atmosphere calm after their earlier ordeal. Yoonha looks off to the side, lost in her own quiet, reflective thoughts. Ji-hwan lets out a soft laugh, placing a hand over his heart with a warm expression. The next day, he paces nervously back and forth in a hallway, clearly anxious about something. His waiting ends as Yoonha, wearing a lovely pink dress, walks toward him while someone calls her name. She happily greets Ji-hwan, who compliments her on looking even prettier today, making her blush. He asks how her leg is, and she cheerfully confirms that it's all better now. Ji-hwan shyly invites her to have dinner with him, explaining that some good meat was delivered, leaving them both feeling a little awkward. Slam! Yoonha suddenly bolts into a room and shuts the door, leaving a completely bewildered Ji-hwan staring at it. Utterly confused, Ji-hwan wonders what just happened, and if she has some hidden concern. He worries that Kang Yena might have bothered her again, just as a sudden edge erupts from inside the room. The door flies open to reveal an ecstatic Yoonha, who excitedly announces that she's received a message. She joyfully tells a stunned Ji-hwan that she got a message from her brother, saying he's here. Panicking, Yoonha realizes this isn't the time to dally. She has to rush home to change and put on makeup. Shouting, "I am leaving," she runs off, leaving Ji-hwan behind. Ba-bam! Ji-hwan clutches his chest, his heart pounding as he watches her go. Giggling with unrestrained joy, Yoonha is certain the person she's meeting is her brother, Hyun-woo. Arriving at a sleek, modern building, she looks around, wondering where he is. Inside a cafe, she checks her phone, noting she still has 15 minutes and wondering if he's arrived yet. While waiting, she fiddles with her dress, worrying that her photo shoot outfit might be too childish and hoping he won't be disappointed. She daydreams about how her brother might look now, picturing a handsome man in a forensic uniform and hoping he isn't married. As time ticks by, she begins to worry, wondering if it's possible he's not coming after all. Her thoughts are interrupted when a man in a dark suit approaches her table, and she looks up in confusion. He stands before her as she sits, looking up at him expectantly. Her eyes widen and she blushes, a hopeful thought crossing her mind. Could it really be him? The man introduces himself as her brother's classmate from a training course, explaining he's heard a lot about her as he offers a business card. Taking the card, she listens as he explains that he had asked someone named Se-hun for the chance to meet her. Her hope shatters as she asks if he's not Hyun-woo, to which he confusedly repeats the name. Overwhelmed with disappointment, she realizes he doesn't even know her brother, and that her hopes of a reunion were misplaced. Apologizing curtly, she says she's leaving and quickly stands up from her chair. As she turns to go, the man calls out her name, but she doesn't stop. Rushing away with tears in her eyes, she desperately thinks to herself, "Brother, you're still alive, right?" A sweet memory of a younger Yoonha laughing happily with Ji-hwan surfaces. Back in his office, Ji-hwan looks down at his phone with a forlorn expression, wondering if there's any hope for him. He looks dejected, concluding to himself that she seems to like that guy, her brother, a lot. His blonde-haired colleague asks about dinner, but Ji-hwan, covering his face in despair, says he wants to be alone and tells him to eat without him. His blonde-haired colleague, Il-young, respectfully obliges and leaves him alone in the office. Later, at his home, Ji-hwan is startled by an arrival, apologizing to his sister and questioning the word in his thoughts. As Il-young prepares to leave the apartment, Ji-hwan tells him to come back and visit again soon. Yoonha sadly wonders to herself why she's here now, after leaving so excitedly earlier in the day. She apologizes to Ji-hwan for the sudden visit, explaining that in her frustration, he was the only one she could think of. Yoonha begins to explain the situation, clarifying that the man she went to meet wasn't her fiancé, but someone she's long been searching for. Ji-hwan asks who he is, prompting a moment of quiet hesitation from Yoonha. She tells him about a boy from her childhood, 3 years older, who lived in her neighborhood. She reveals his name was Hyun-woo, an older brother figure, which visibly startles Ji-hwan. The name Hyun-woo echoes in Ji-hwan's mind, leaving him utterly stunned by the revelation. A flashback begins, showing a messy construction site as a young boy's voice teases a playmate to hide better. In a large industrial yard, the young boy, Hyun-woo, calls out for Yoonha while playing hide-and-seek. Giggling, a young Yoonha crouches in her hiding spot, listening to Hyun-woo search for her. Hyun-woo looks around the yard, completely unaware that Yoonha is hiding in the crates right below him. He finds her, playfully conceding that she has won the game, and calls out her name. Hyun-woo suggests it's time to go home, and Yoonha happily agrees, worried they'll be scolded for being late. Clanking, their game is abruptly interrupted by the arrival of 2 menacing men, one demanding to know where a girl was seen. Hyun-woo quickly pulls Yoonha down to hide, warning her it's dangerous, as the men discuss their boss's orders to find her. One of the thugs confirms seeing a girl who looks like her, while the other vows to find that bitch no matter what. The men discuss their plan to abduct the girl, dismissing concerns about her mother reporting the kidnapping to the police. Yoonha whispers that she's scared because the men look like kidnappers, but Hyun-woo comforts her, urging her to stay quiet. As the 2 children huddle in fear, one of the thugs senses their presence, remarking that there's a little rat somewhere nearby. Footsteps echo as the men close in, with one vowing to find and deal with whoever is hiding. A man looms over them, telling them to come out. As Hyun-woo realizes they're discovered, and shushes a terrified Yoonha. Hyun-woo instructs Yoonha to stay and cover her ears, but she tearfully pleads for him not to go, recalling a past time he took the blame for her. He gives her a gentle smile, reassuring her that he will be okay. Yoonha looks at her brother with worry and admiration as he faces the danger with a calm, determined expression. Standing up to face the men, Hyun-woo silently resolves that this will be the last time she is ever put in harm's way. Back in the present, Yoonha tells Ji-hwan that Hyun-woo and his mother were chased away by creditors and disappeared overnight. Tearfully, she explains that her mother forbade her from going to the police due to the threat of gang retaliation. She cries, confessing her long-held fear that her family would have been endangered and that Hyun-woo is likely dead. Overwhelmed with fear, she asks Ji-hwan for reassurance that Hyun-woo is still alive, admitting it's her first time telling anyone. Ji-hwan looks at her with a steady gaze and calmly tells her, "Probably not." Yoonha smiles in relief, choosing to believe him and hoping Hyun-woo is living well, as Ji-hwan watches her with a complex expression. His scar visible, Ji-hwan quietly agrees with her hopeful sentiment. Later, Il-young sees Yoon-ha to the car, telling Ji-hwan to take care of her. After the door closes, Ji-hwan collapses against it, overcome with the weight of the night's revelations. Touching his cheek, he finally understands with dawning certainty. He is Hyun-woo, the person Yoon-ha has been searching for all along. He painfully recalls Yoon-ha's tears, now fully grasping the depth of her 17 years of searching. He reflects on the 17 years that have passed, stunned that she remembered him when he thought he was forgotten. Looking at his calloused hands, he realizes it's no wonder she can't recognize him now. He thinks about how drastically different he is now compared to the child he used to be. He laments that he became a former gangster instead of a prosecutor, a life so far from what she would have imagined. In the car, Yoon-ha feels a sense of peace, realizing her conversation with Ji-hwan explains why she's been dreaming of Hyun-woo. She muses that while Ji-hwan and her memory of Hyun-woo are so different, they both possess the same calm, reassuring eyes. Her thoughts are interrupted as Il-young, her driver, announces they have arrived. Il-young notes she seems calmer and asks what happened, but she simply thanks him for taking her home. Before he leaves, Yoon-ha rummages in her bag and holds something out to him. Il-young politely refuses whatever she's offering, but she insists, clarifying that it isn't money. Zap Il-young takes the business card from her and stares at it in absolute shock, asking, "Huh?" Il-young smiles warmly, deciding he can't throw away the business card Yoon-ha gave him and will use it to get a haircut. Now in a suit, Il-young arrives at a salon where a hairstylist with short dark hair greets him. The hairstylist mentally prepares herself, excited that this is her first time with scissors after 2 years at the salon. She nervously welcomes Il-young, who requests a simple shortcut, while other stylists wonder if he's a model. The hairstylist observes him, noting that his sophisticated appearance and direct way of speaking don't quite match. Internally panicking about her intimidating first customer, she politely gestures for him to take a seat. Snip. With trembling hands, the hairstylist tries to cut his hair, nervously reassuring herself that she has practiced enough. Drip. A drop of blood appears on Il-young's cheek as he looks up, startled by the accidental cut. A manager rushes over, yelling at the stylist, "Mi-ho," for her mistake as she apologizes profusely to Il-young. The manager bows low, explaining to Il-young that Mi-ho is just tense because it's her first time. As Mi-ho looks on tearfully, her manager scolds her for the mistake and orders her to take the guest to the hospital. Il-young calmly dismisses the injury as no big deal, asking for a bandage so they can continue the haircut. As Mi-ho gently applies a bandage to his cheek, she asks if he's all right, and he assures her it's just a small cut. Mi-ho looks at him with wide, surprised eyes, touched by his unexpectedly calm and kind demeanor. With the haircut finished, Il-young looks in the mirror with satisfaction, bandage on his cheek as Mi-ho stands beside him. At the counter, Mi-ho refuses payment because she hurt him, but he questions if he looks like someone who expects free services. Il-young offers a kind smile, telling her not to worry because everyone makes mistakes on their first try, leaving her speechless. Mi-ho quietly watches Il-young as he confidently walks out of the salon. Later, outside a modern home, Ji-hwan's colleagues discuss how excited their sister Yoon-ha was to meet her brother. They wonder why she returned crying that evening, with one concluding it must have been a breakup. Another colleague questions why she'd cry while looking for their boss, as Il-young speculates a historic story happened in the cold storage. Chuckles. The group of men laugh together, amused by Il-young's dramatic theory about the boss and Yoon-ha. Il-young confidently gives orders, telling Min-gyu to find a wedding dress and Yoon Seob to track down the venue. The team enthusiastically cheers, "Yes, sir," determined not to miss a single detail of their boss's supposed romance. In his office, Ji-hwan wonders what Yoon-ha will ultimately think, worrying she'd feel guilty if she knew his true identity. He continues to ponder what she'll think of Seo Ji-hwan, the man who isn't the Seo Hyun-woo she remembers. Elsewhere, a heartbroken Yoon-ha can't stop thinking about Ji-hwan, despite her confusion and sadness. The office door bursts open as his team, wearing party hats, loudly congratulates Ji-hwan on starting to date. A colleague playfully places a party hat on a completely bewildered Ji-hwan, continuing the congratulations. His team erupts in a celebratory dance around his desk, cheering for his new and misunderstood relationship. Ji-hwan clarifies to a smiling Il-young that they are not, in fact, dating, much to their disappointment. With a stern expression, Ji-hwan strictly orders his team not to discuss him or his past with Yoonha. A brown-haired woman briefs Ji-hwan's team, giving them 10 minutes to memorize something before a writing session begins. An actor, introducing himself as Jang Tae-hyun, reflects on Ji-hwan's crying image being caused by that man. The brown-haired woman wonders if Ji-hwan told the actor his life story but dismisses it, then realizes the actor seems to be a fan of hers. Ji-hwan, completely distracted, doodles in his notebook, admitting to himself that he isn't focused at all. Suddenly, Ji-hwan stands and asks the brown-haired woman, "Will you go on a date with me?" Blush. The woman panics, covering her face and exclaiming she's lost her mind as the team looks on, surprised. A colleague teases the blushing woman, who denies thinking of anything while internally marveling at his sharp perception. The colleague smirks knowingly, guessing her flustered expression means she's thinking about their boss. The woman shouts "no" in panic denial, startling her colleagues with her overly strong reaction. Continuing her flustered denial, she can only think of one name, Seo Ji-hwan. A memory of Ji-hwan's gentle smile and reassuring words, "It's fine, Eun-ha," flashes through her mind. Lost in thought, she imagines Ji-hwan comforting Eun-ha, whispering his name to herself. Her colleagues review the script, confused by the gangster character's gentle nature and admitting they don't understand the role. The writer explains her vision for the character, someone who seems a bit scary, like a gangster, which visibly startles Il-young. Ji-hwan is shocked, realizing with dread what she means by that gangster's shoulder. A narration box explains that shoulder is slang for a gangster, and Ji-hwan looks deeply disturbed by the revelation. The writer explains that she initially thought Ji-hwan was a bad guy but heard he's doing good, inspiring the character. Ji-hwan's hope shatters as he realizes that despite his efforts to change, Yoonha has always seen him as a thug. Outside a modern, luxurious home at night, an unseen person decides it's time to grade the results. Inside, the writer Yoonha briefs Ji-hwan's team, explaining the exam question is to describe someone with a strong appearance but a weak interior. As the team's incorrect answers are revealed, Yoonha giggles at their amusing attempt to describe chicken, while Il-young and another man look confused. The men joke with each other, with one teasing another for copying, as Il-young suggests their boss would know the answer. Yoonha thinks they're all copying. Yoonha bursts into laughter, clutching her stomach as a colleague asks why she's laughing so hard. Wiping a tear away, she reflects that the scary men are innocent like children, and that she's enjoying her classes. Il-young hands in his paper, smiling as he notes she's having fun, and she agrees while trying to compose herself. Il-young points forward, cheekily calling out his colleague for using the term big brother, and the other man agrees with a laugh. Yoonha watches the team's playful dynamic with a warm, slightly bemused expression. The men conclude that Ji-hwan is tough outside but soft inside, and scary but easy to deceive. Hearing their answer, Yoonha feels a sudden urge to see him. After class, Yoonha declines her colleague's offer for a ride, determined to go see Ji-hwan herself. Arriving at his home, she finds he isn't there and resolves to thank him for listening to her story about Hyunwoo. Bump! She walks straight into a firm chest, stopping in her tracks with a startled expression. Looking up, she's stunned to see a blushing Ji-hwan with his shirt wide open, calling out his name in surprise. A flustered Ji-hwan, complaining of the heat, apologizes as a blushing Yoonha averts her gaze, unsure where to look. As he steps closer, Yoonha, now completely flustered, notes the distinct smell of wine on him. After confirming he's been drinking, she feels faint and suggests they sit down, letting him guide her to a nearby bench. Now sitting outside on a bench, a disoriented Ji-hwan asks her what's wrong, leaving her momentarily speechless. Drunk and upset, Ji-hwan points somewhere off-panel, complaining that his name is up there, while Yoonha asks why he's so agitated. Hiccup, he slurs that he's working at a good company now, and Yoonha thinks to herself that everyone already knows he's a director. He insists his past as a thug is over, looking at her with a pained, drunken intensity. Staggering, he leans unsteadily toward a surprised Yoonha, who can only manage a confused, "Huh?" As he moves closer, her heart pounds as she wonders what's happening and if he's about to. Her thoughts race as she realizes he might be about to kiss her. Thump. The air is thick with tension as their faces are mere inches apart. He suddenly collapses onto her shoulder, completely passed out, and she lets out a breath of relief. As he rests on her shoulder, Ji-hwan mumbles that he isn't a thug, leaving a dazed Yunha to process the intense moment. The next morning, a hungover Ji-hwan sits up in bed as Il-young brings him a drink, asking if he's okay after drinking so much. Ji-hwan admits to having 3 glasses of wine, shocking Il-young, who notes his tolerance has surprisingly increased. Swallow. Ji-hwan quickly downs the drink, as Il-young watches him with concern. Looking distant, Ji-hwan declines Il-young's offer of more water, insisting he is fine. Il-young informs a pensive Ji-hwan that Yunha was very worried about him the previous night. Ji-hwan looks horrified at the thought of Yunha seeing him drunk, and Il-young confirms she found him on the garden bench. Panicked, Ji-hwan asks if he revealed his identity as Seo Hyun-woo, while Il-young asks if he said anything else that was strange. Phew. Il-young sighs in relief, reassuring a tense Ji-hwan that he said nothing incriminating. Il-young advises Ji-hwan to get ready for work and to leave his gangster role at the company. Ji-hwan slumps gloomily, muttering that he has to work hard to escape his gangster role, leaving Il-young confused by the remark. At a Halloween-themed office, a crew member announces that filming will begin in 1 hour. Yunha, dressed in a witch costume, looks annoyed by the decorations and demands to know who's responsible for the prank. Vowing to find the prankster, she calls Il-young to check on Ji-hwan. Il-young reports that Ji-hwan seems uncomfortable, while in the background, a dejected Ji-hwan sinks into a dark aura of despair. On the phone, Il-young relays Ji-hwan's strange comment about escaping the gangster's shoulder, leaving them both puzzled. A concerned Yunha tells Il-young to contact her if anything else happens. Freeze! Yunha suddenly freezes, rereading her own script and seeing the words "gangster's shoulder" with dawning horror. Her eyes widen as she realizes with a shock that Ji-hwan completely misunderstood her story and thinks it's about him. As a colleague calls out that filming is about to start, Yunha rushes off, shouting that she'll be right back. Thud. She runs with urgent determination, leaving her colleagues behind. As Yunha disappears, her colleagues call after her in confusion, one man murmuring her name in concern. The crew members watch her go, wondering what they should do now that she has suddenly left. The scene shifts to a large office building as a voice asks, "Hyung, are you okay?" In a sleek office, Il-young asks a concerned question. "Hyung, are you okay?" Ji-hwan, sitting dejectedly at his desk, dismisses Il-young's offer of hangover soup and tells his team to eat without him. Standing alone in a closing elevator, Ji-hwan wears a somber expression. The doors open to a group of employees, one of whom apologizes for being on the wrong floor and asks to ride the elevator with him. Ji-hwan's imposing presence terrifies the other employees as he internally resigns himself to the idea that he's still seen as a thug. Annoyed, Ji-hwan impatiently tells the frightened group to get in if they're coming, prompting a quick, apologetic scramble. HMPH walking down the hall, Ji-hwan scoffs, convinced that no matter how hard he tries, he'll always be just a thug. With a look of sudden confusion, he thinks, huh? His confusion turns to shock as he wonders why a witch is standing before him. He realizes with a start that the panting woman in the witch costume is Yunha. They stand face to face, calling out each other's names in a moment of shared surprise. Yunha looks at him with determination, declaring that he is not a thug but a good person. She continues to speak earnestly to a stunned Ji-hwan, determined to clear up the misunderstanding. Blushing, Yunha shyly adds that she thinks men with broad shoulders look cool. Mortified by her own boldness, she runs away, wondering how she'll ever face him again, while onlookers mistake the scene for a movie shoot. Blush. A completely flustered Ji-hwan covers his mouth, his face bright red. As Ji-hwan face palms in embarrassment, a man with glasses and a box approaches him. The man asks Ji-hwan to take a survey and donate to a children's charity, and Ji-hwan immediately pulls out his wallet. The man is stunned by the large amount of cash Ji-hwan stuffs into the donation box, as Ji-hwan simply tells him to ensure it gets delivered properly. The volunteer thanks him profusely, promising him blessings, as Ji-hwan walks away, his expression calm. With renewed resolve, Ji-hwan vows to himself that he will live an even better life from now on. The scene transitions to a bright, modern shopping mall. While shopping with a friend, Yunha reflects on how sad Ji-hwan must have been to misunderstand her thug shoulders comment. Holding up a cute pink dress, Yoonha gushes to her friend that Ji-hwan is just as cute as the outfit. Her black-haired friend smirks, teasingly asking why she's changed her tune from calling him scary to calling him cute. Yoonha passionately defends him, explaining he's actually handsome, kind, and does good deeds, prompting her friend to ask about Hyunwoo. Her friend suggests she seriously date Ji-hwan, but Yoonha remains firm, stating she won't date anyone until she finds Hyunwoo. Freeze. Yoonha stops in her tracks as her friend points out how excited she gets when talking about her thirsty dear boss. Blushing at the observation, Yoonha confirms she still hasn't given up on finding Hyunwoo. Her friend offers enthusiastic encouragement for finding him, which Yoonha finds a bit suspicious. With a dreamy expression, the friend confesses she now understands, as she too has started liking someone she barely knows. Surprised, Yoonha asks her friend who this mystery person is. At home, Ji-hwan discusses exercise with his team, deciding that training with a crossbar is the most effective. Flexing for Il-young, he marvels at how someone can have shoulders so broad they look like they're wearing a rugby jacket. Posing, he asks a bewildered Il-young what truly defines a man. Ji-hwan proudly shows off his muscular physique with a confident pose. Announcing he's off to exercise, Ji-hwan leaves his team behind. Yoonha appears, now radiantly dressed in the new pink outfit she bought at the mall. Il-young compliments her beautiful dress, but she shyly claims she just wanted to feel the autumn atmosphere. She beams, inwardly thrilled to be wearing her new dress for the first time. Yoonha asks where Ji-hwan is, and Il-young tells her he's in the basement gym, leaving her flustered and amazed that the house has one. Il-young leads her to the gym entrance, remarking that it's more fun than a club, but Yoonha finds it even scarier. Peeking inside, she's surprised to find the gym is bright and more spacious than she'd imagined. She steps inside and calls out, "Ji-hwan, are you here?" Her eyes widen in surprise as she hears a noise from within the gym. Her gaze falls upon the intricate dragon tattoo covering Ji-hwan's side as he works out. She's met with the full view of his back, completely covered by the massive dragon tattoo as he does a pull-up. Phew. He turns around, revealing his chiseled, shirtless body, causing a shocked Yoonha to cover her mouth. Stuttering his name, she's so overwhelmed that she gets a nosebleed. Thud. As he drops from the bar, she thinks about how she knew he was muscular, but never expected such a perfect physique, all while blood drips from her nose. Whoosh. Thud. As Ji-hwan walks away, a dazed Yoonha bumps her head against the glass, wishing she could see him again. Snapping back to reality, she questions her own embarrassing behavior. Thud, thud. She flees in a panic, thinking she's going crazy. Sensing a presence, a shirtless Ji-hwan turns, wondering if someone is coming. Later, standing in a bathroom, he inspects his back tattoo and notices his shoulders look a bit broader. He worries that at this size, anyone would mistake his shoulders for a gangster's. Laugh. He smiles, recalling Yoonha's compliment that men with broad shoulders look cool. The scene shifts to the exterior of a large, modern home. Now dressed, Ji-hwan stands in the hall, wondering if Yoonha is about to leave. Thud. He turns a corner and is surprised to find her, exclaiming that he's found her. Startled, they both call out each other's names in the hallway. Yoonha offers a shy hello, and Ji-hwan is internally captivated, wondering why she looks so beautiful today. A blushing Yoonha confirms his question as he awkwardly compliments her witch costume from Halloween. He asks if she wore it for the holiday, and a flustered Yoonha agrees, thinking she can't meet his gaze. Wah! Overwhelmed with guilt and memories of his physique, she silently begs him not to stare, while he wonders why she is avoiding him. He asks if something is wrong, as a flustered Yoonha mumbles and frantically prays to banish her lewd thoughts about his body. Leaning in, he gently touches her cheek, calling her name with concern. Completely flustered by his touch, she can only stammer incoherently. Ji-hwan watches her intently, waiting for an explanation she can't seem to form. Whoosh! Suddenly, Yoonha bolts, shouting that she's leaving now. A bewildered Il-young watches her flee, wondering why she ran off. The scene changes to Yoonha in her pajamas, looking around her own room in confusion, as if in a dream. In her dream, a sparkling shirtless Ji-hwan beckons her to touch him, leaving a stunned Yoonha to gasp in disbelief. Her dream focuses on his perfectly sculpted, glistening abs. Overcome with temptation, she thinks, "Oh my," as she leans forward. View. In her dream, she trips while reaching for his tattooed back and realizes she's falling. Bang! She wakes up with a thud on her bedroom floor, realizing how crazy she's being. Frantically scratching her head, she panics about dreaming of a shirtless Ji Hwan for 3 days straight and tells herself to snap out of it. With grim determination, she decides that for now, she has no choice but to stay away from Ji Hwan. Sometime later, a thought bubble announces the end of her tutoring lesson at the modern house. Il-young and his men bow as she leaves, offering to escort her home. Yoon-ha frantically rejects their offer and Il-young's suggestion for Ji Hwan to pick her up, insisting she drove herself. She scurries away, glancing over her shoulder to make sure Ji Hwan isn't following before she turns the corner. She runs right into Ji Hwan, who asks if her lesson is over. He invites her to dinner, but a flustered Yoon-ha tries to decline, saying it's not necessary. Mortified and surrounded by a dark aura of anxiety, she thinks she can't possibly look him in the face. A concerned Ji Hwan asks if he did something wrong, while Yoon-ha stammers nervously. He sincerely asks her to tell him the truth, so he can apologize and fix it. He reminds her that she called him a good person, so he's confused by her sudden avoidance. As Yoon-ha hesitates, he earnestly asks for a chance to fix whatever mistake he made. Yoon-ha finally admits it's her fault, not his, leaving a confused Ji Hwan to ask what she means. She internally struggles, wanting to stop the awkward conversation as he stares at her intently. They stand facing each other in a moment of tense silence. Ji Hwan explains he wants to remain a good person in her eyes and won't force her, but he admits that he will be very distressed if she leaves like this. Blushing furiously, she's flustered by his claim that he might not be able to eat, sleep, or rest because of this. She wonders what he's talking about, as he directly asks her to explain why she is avoiding him. On the verge of tears from embarrassment, she struggles to find the words to explain the real reason. Mortified, Yoon-ha panics, internally shouting that she doesn't know what to say. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, she gives up trying to find an excuse. Blushing furiously, she blurts out the truth. She started liking his body. She recalls how he hugged and carried her, adding to her embarrassment. She confesses she saw him exercising and found his body cool, then worries he must be angry. She admits she keeps thinking about his body and wants to hug it again, immediately panicking at her own words. Crying comical tears, she berates herself for sounding like a pervert with her blunt confession. Freeze. As a stunned Ji Hwan covers his mouth, Yoon-ha misreads his shock as anger and begins to panic. Believing she's upset him, she closes her eyes and apologizes for making him feel uncomfortable. While Yoon-ha regrets her words, Ji Hwan realizes she doesn't hate him, she's just shy. A blushing Ji Hwan is overcome with joy and an intense desire to hug her. When he reassures her that he doesn't feel uncomfortable at all, she looks up in surprise. He looks at her with a gentle, blushing smile, admitting that he's incredibly happy. His joyful reaction leaves Yoon-ha stunned as a thought begins to form. Mustering her courage, she directly asks him, "Do you like me?" He hesitates for a moment, his expression serious as he considers her question. With a look of gentle resolve, he closes his eyes and softly confesses, yes. He apologizes for someone like him daring to care for her, explaining that he tried not to. Looking directly into her eyes, he finally confesses, "I like you, Yoon-ha." Yoon-ha clarifies that she's still devoted to Hyun-woo, but Ji Hwan is simply moved, thinking to himself that he is, in fact, Seo Hyun-woo. Thump. He smiles, realizing her loyalty to her memory of Hyun-woo has exceeded all his expectations. Thump thump. He resolves that in the future she will look only towards him, as a stunned Yoon-ha's heart pounds in her chest. He gently takes her hand, and they stand together, sharing a quiet, sparkling moment. The scene transitions to the exterior of a modern office building. As a conflicted Yoon-ha walks away, Ji Hwan vows to do his best so she will always look toward him. On the phone, she muses that while Ji Hwan is a good person, her commitment to Hyun-woo will ultimately extinguish his hopes. As she leaves, a woman with long, dark red hair calls out for her to wait. The woman Yena comments that Yoon-ha looks tired, and Yoon-ha greets her in return. Yena announces she is going to Europe for 10 days, leaving Yoon-ha surprised. She explains that she needs the trip to clear her head. Yena explains that while she is away, there will be no new toys or videos for the children. Yoon-ha thanks her for the advance notice, thinking Yena is surprisingly gentle as she prepares to leave. Sin. Yoon-ha wishes her a safe trip, admiring how cool and composed she is. She worries that the children will be disappointed without any toys and wonders what she can do. Making a decision, She calls Il-young to ask for a favor. Il-young listens intently on the other end of the line. Losing her nerve, she laughs awkwardly and says it was nothing, thinking she can't bring herself to ask. Beep, beep, beep. The call ends abruptly, leaving him staring at his phone. He turns away, still holding the phone, wondering what just happened with her. Walking alone, she chides herself for being so untalented and unable to ask for help. She resolves to thank Kang Yena when she returns, admiring her confident nature. She arrives at the performance room, surprised to find it empty. Looking around, she wonders why the children aren't there, since they always arrive before the show starts. Suddenly, she spots the children running into the room with new toys, excitedly calling out for Minnie. The children thank Minnie for the gift, leaving her completely confused. The children excitedly show off their new princess and puppy dolls, as Yunha wonders what is going on. Ta-da! She sees Ji-hwan's men, all dressed as dwarves, happily giving presents to the children. She recognizes Jung Gi-an, Song Jae, Ming Yu, and even Yu Sap among Falom'd men. Finally, she spots Il-young, also in costume, who turns and greets her with a cheerful smile. A surprised Yunha asks the costumed men what they are all doing here. Il-young reports to Minnie that they've calmed the children as requested, while Yunha recognizes his voice from a troubling memory. Yunha asks Il-young if he's disguised as Peter Pan, and he poses with a confident A. She realizes they're all dressed as dwarfs and is shocked that such tough-looking men are in costume. Whisper. A little girl tells Minnie that the dwarf, referring to Il-young, is very beautiful. Someone off-panel calls out, "Hey, kid," startling the little girl. Rub, rub. He pats her head with a smile, praising her for learning well. Yunha thinks that, thanks to Il-young and the others, the children seem happier than ever. Newly determined to do her best, a chibi Yunha clenches her fists and cheerfully greets everyone. Later, sitting on a bench with Ji-hwan, Yunha thanks him, confirming that Il-young told her he sent the gifts. She happily reports that the kids loved the presents, and Ji-hwan asks how she felt about it. Ji-hwan smiles gently, admitting that he did it all for her. Blushing furiously, Yunha is flustered as Ji-hwan explains that what truly matters is her feelings. She stammers that she's very happy, and Ji-hwan replies that her happiness makes him happy too. Ji-hwan watches her with a serious, thoughtful gaze. Yunha tells him he's kind, but asks him not to do such things in the future, prompting a confused Ji-hwan to ask why. She explains that he's wasting his time, as her heart belongs to her benefactor and ideal model, Hyun-woo. Ji-hwan asks her what exactly she likes about Hyun-woo, catching her off guard. Smiling wistfully, Yunha says she loves Hyun-woo's sweet voice when he calls her name. She fondly lists his talents, sports, piano, and his handsome, tall appearance. Ji-hwan listens with a complex, unreadable expression. He suddenly covers his mouth, looking pained, which makes Yunha worry that she's hurt his feelings. To her surprise, Ji-hwan bursts into hearty laughter. As he continues to laugh, Yunha is stunned, thinking that she's never seen him smile like this before. She cautiously wonders who his smile reminds her of. It dawns on her that he looks just like Hyun-woo, as he apologizes for laughing so suddenly. Thinking he'd understand if this were his true personality, she encourages him to laugh more. As she stands, she muses that Hyun-woo might laugh too, teasing her for still liking him, which startles Ji-hwan. Ji-hwan quickly grabs her wrist, insisting that's not it. He earnestly tells a stunned Yunha that Hyun-woo would actually be very happy. He explains that Hyun-woo would be overjoyed to know she hasn't forgotten him, and a moved Yunha thanks him. Yunha smiles to herself, slyly wondering how Ji-hwan could possibly know what Hyun-woo is thinking. The scene shifts to Yunha tutoring Il-young and 3 other men, who are all diligently writing at a table. As Yunha wonders how to make Ji-hwan give up, one of his men informs Il-young that there are 7 dwarfs, not 5. Slam. A furious Ji-hwan slams the table, incorrectly stating the fairy tale is Sleeping Beauty and asking why a sleeping princess would need 7 dwarves, leaving Yunha to mentally facepalm at his mistake. Ji-hwan dismisses his subordinate as an uneducated idiot, leaving Il-young to look on. The men debate the fairy tale, with one questioning if dwarves even wake Snow White, earning a thought of being unobservant. Ji-hwan sighs in exasperation at his men's ignorance. Yunha innocently asks Ji-hwan if it's true there are 7 dwarves, to which he simply replies, Yes, two of the men start arguing about whether their faces are too cheeky to be dwarves, while Il-young laments that everyone but him is a jerk. Yoonha watches with a nervous sweat as the men's argument intensifies with a dark aura. The mood abruptly shifts as the men discuss modern toys, and Yoonha is relieved they've stopped fighting. She suggests they just chat instead of studying, and her students roar their approval. The lesson derails as one man questions how another even graduated from elementary school. Slap in a flashback, a man recalls being an orphan unjustly accused of theft, leading him to hit his teacher in anger. He explains that after dropping out and falling in with a bad crowd, he was left in his eldest brother's care. Another man shares that he was raised by his grandmother, who sold goods at the market to support them. Thud. He recalls fighting off gangsters who bullied his grandmother, which landed him in a juvenile detention center. A third man with reddish-brown hair calmly explains that his mother remarried and he got a new stepfather. The reddish-brown-haired man continues his story, explaining that after his mother had another child, his stepfather became abusive, forcing him to run away. He smiles, telling a shocked Yoonha that while he was wandering the streets, the eldest brother found him and took him in. Yoonha reflects on their harsh pasts, thinking with empathy how difficult it must have been for men who were all so young at the time. She then turns to Il-young to ask about his story, catching the blonde-haired man by surprise. Thinking she's being intrusive, Yoonha apologizes, but Il-young smiles and reassures her that it's not a problem at all. Ji-hwan places a hand on Il-young's shoulder, encouraging him to tell Yoonha what he was like when he was young. A subordinate interjects that the one who had it hardest of all was the eldest brother, leaving Yoonha to wonder about Ji-hwan's past. After hearing their painful stories, Yoonha is filled with a new resolve to teach them as diligently as she can. With a fiery aura of determination, she suggests they all go to the bookstore, an idea her students greet with roaring enthusiasm. Thinking how nice it is to go to the bookstore together, the group arrives at the building's exterior. Inside, Yoonha generously offers to buy each of them a book, personally selecting one she believes Il-young needs. She happily browses the shelves, delighted to find another book she was looking for. Shake. She excitedly shows a workbook to Ji-hwan and Il-young, who both recoil in absolute horror. Undeterred, she proudly presents a test booklet, declaring that she wants them to work on it together. Gulp. The three men stare back in sheer terror, covering their mouths in unison. She continues gathering materials, suggesting they also pick up some national literature books. Hick! The overwhelming sight of textbooks causes Il-young to gag, while another man beside him begins foaming at the mouth. Il-young quickly makes an excuse, telling Yoonha they urgently need some fresh air and will be right back. Whoosh! Come back quickly. She calls after them as the men's silhouettes are seen sprinting away in a panic. Outside, the men decompress on a bench, complaining about the stress and how one of them was dying for a cigarette. Ji-hwan asks Il-young what to do now that she seems serious about the test, and Il-young reasons they should at least pretend for a while. Two passing high school students mock the men for needing elementary-level workbooks, which infuriates them. Stand up. Ji-hwan rises and calmly confronts the students, asking if they'd like to talk. Yoonha suddenly appears and asks what they're doing, causing the students to nervously identify themselves. She acknowledges they are high school students and asks if they are good at studying, as one student defensively asks why she cares. Yoonha smiles sweetly, pointing out that since they look down on experts, they must be exceptionally good at studying themselves. One student arrogantly agrees he's good and tells her to get lost, while his friend wonders what's wrong with her. Flaming. A competitive fire ignites in Yoonha's eyes as she challenges them to prove it, terrifying her own students with her aura. Ji-hwan's men panic, remembering how her temper once sent their boss to the hospital, while the students are confused by the tense atmosphere. One of the students warily asks the confident Yoonha what she's planning to do. Thud. She firmly places the test booklet in the student's hand. Holding the book, a scowling Yoonha asks if the question is wrong, but the student can only ask, "What?" With stars in her eyes, she smiles and smugly asks if the problem is just too easy for them. As the student stumbles, Yoonha launches into a complex lecture on differentiable functions, which Il-young and another man think sounds like an alien language. Now wearing glasses and surrounded by floating equations, she smugly lays out the mathematical proof with ease, flaming. She turns away from the defeated students, stating they have no right to blame others as her own men watch in awe. She then turns to her own students, seriously explaining that not everyone is born with the same luck and opportunities. Startled, if they had the chance to learn, she asks, "Don't you think they'd do just as well?" Her words strike a chord with the men. One of the students calls her a crazy woman as his friend drags him away, urging him to drop it. Deeply moved that she stood up for them, Il-young and another man cover their mouths to hold back tears of gratitude. The conflict resolved, Yoonha smiles brightly and announces it's time to go home, walking through an imaginary field of flowers. In an office, a subordinate with long gray hair rushes to Ji-hwan, shouting that something big has happened. Ji-hwan asks what's wrong, but his subordinate can only say it's crazy, and that he must see it for himself. The scene cuts to Ji-hwan's men, all studying diligently at a table as the narration begins. From this moment on, their intense studying continues day and night, with Il-young even asking Ji-hwan for help while his boss is trying to sleep. The men's dedication extends to their workday, as they continue studying even during their lunch break. Clack. The relentless studying session continues through dinner the following evening. One of the men even takes over a household chore from the housekeeper, telling her to let him focus on his studies. Ji-hwan watches his men's praiseworthy efforts from afar, feeling both proud and a little jealous. A wistful Ji-hwan looks on, thinking to himself that he too wants to study with Yoonha. In a flashback, a woman with brown hair sits on a bench with Ji-hwan, asking him what Yoonha likes so much about Hyun-woo. The brown-haired woman smiles fondly, saying she likes everything about Hyun-woo and is determined to marry him. Fuff! In the present, Ji-hwan spits out his drink at a table, shocking Il-young and his other men. Ji-hwan laughs, covering his mouth as his men ask if he's okay after suddenly choking. At the Mio Money Inc. office, a subordinate reports to his boss, Ji-hwan, while Il-young stands by. The subordinate confirms a report about a 6-year-old building owner, prompting Ji-hwan to wonder why she's still working before deciding to review the file. Ji-hwan and a subordinate watch a puppet show video where Yoonha narrates a story about a scary-looking but kind friend named Ji-hwan. The puppet show introduces a villain, a black, cat-like character named Yang Hee, who harasses the villagers. A man with a scar on his cheek watches the video with a darkened face, shocked to see the name Yang Hee. The scene shifts to the exterior of a modern hospital, as someone mentions the hospital director. Inside, Yoonha is asked to be the promotional model for a pediatric cancer center fundraiser, which she readily accepts for the good cause. When Yoonha expresses doubt because she's not a famous YouTuber, she's told that she's the most famous star in the hospital. The hospital director smiles warmly on the phone, telling a determined Yoonha that they're relying on her. On the phone with the director, Yoonha worriedly brings up the 5 dwarves, explaining that the children are eagerly waiting for them. Yoonha panics, wondering how Il-young and the others can possibly perform since they are employees and it's on a weekday. With renewed determination, Yoonha clenches her fist and resolves that she must ask Ji-hwan for help. Her confidence immediately wavers as she realizes that asking him for such a favor will be difficult. Yoonha stands before Ji-hwan, who confirms that asking his men to take 2 days off is an excessive request. A flustered Yoonha apologizes, thinking she was being short-sighted and shouldn't have brought it up. She tells him to forget it, but Ji-hwan thinks to himself about the possibility of helping Yoonha. Ji-hwan intently asks a surprised Yoonha if she can help him with something in return. Blushing, Yoonha immediately assumes he wants another date and internally panics that she can't date Ji-hwan. A confused Ji-hwan clarifies he wasn't asking for a date, leaving a small chibi Yoonha looking surprised. Blushing furiously, Yoonha is flustered by her misunderstanding and blurts out that she won't ask him to date her. Ji-hwan covers his mouth, chuckling at a flustered Yoonha, who stammers that it's just. He breaks into a bright, amused laugh, clearly enjoying her reaction. As Yoonha stares in shock, Ji-hwan playfully says that of course he wants to date her if she agrees. Ji-hwan adds that he knows her heart belongs to Hyun-woo, and he doesn't want to make things difficult for her. Impressed by his maturity, Yoonha thinks he's amazing for mentioning Hyun-woo with a smile, and asks what favor he needs. Ji-hwan reveals his request. He wants Yoonha to tutor him for the proficiency test, which surprises her. Thinking his request is simple, Yoonha agrees to arrange it, but Ji-hwan clarifies that he already graduated from middle school. He steps closer, telling a slightly startled Yoonha that he wants to study separately from the others. Push. Ji Huang pins Yunhe against the wall, leaving her shocked as he begins to speak. Leaning closer, he tells a nervous-looking Yunhe that the class will be just the two of them.